It is 6:30. Do you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible. Item 1B, approval of the agenda items for discussion.
I move the agenda for the June 12, 2023 regular meeting. Support.
Motion by
I had something I just wanted to bring up before we approve that for the agenda. I just wanted to see if we could just move one of the action items up right behind the superintendent's report, and that would be the new hires. Since we have a lot talking about today, I think it might serve them well if we could do that right after the
Well, I think Mr. Gomez, once we have support, then we can have a conversation about it. So motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Okay, so this would be the items for discussion for today. So Mr. Gomez, you're suggesting moving new hires, item 2D.
Yeah. To just after the superintendent's report.
I don't personally have a problem with that. Is there anybody else that has a concern of moving that? Okay, so Renee, are you getting that we're going to be moving item 2D to, I guess technically be 2. It would be 2A now. So it would be 2A, and then we just bump everything.
Yeah.
Oh, ahead of
The call to public.
Okay.
Superintendent's report.
so after superintendent's report, so I guess that would be good goodness, it'd be 1E. And then we have to bump everything down. So it'd be 1F, 1G. I think I'm fine with that. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Slayback,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
I myself will yes, that motion carries. Item 1C, approval of the minutes, May 8, 2023 regular meeting.
I have one thing on the meeting minutes.
We have to have a motion first.
Oh, sorry. Just went through that.
I move that the minutes for the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting be approved.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman,
I said support too soon. Support. I thought you were yeah.
support by Mrs. Blondell.
Excited, yeah.
All right,
We'll get it right one of these days, Greg.
all right. Mrs. Shaw, you have something to say?
So under agenda approved, the last item, right before minutes approved. It's on the second page of meeting minutes. It's the motion for 8805. It says motion carried 7-0, but it was actually 4-3. Just a typo.
Okay, so. Motion. Where's it on the back side?
Yep, motion by Gogolewski, supported by Keller.
Page 7 in the packet,
Okay,
second item.
all right, Renee, you get this? Renee's got this. There we go. All right, that's been changed. Any other discussion?
Yes, I did have one item as well, on page 8, so the next page. Second to last item on policy 8305. Says motion carried 4-3, but I see 3 yeses and 4 nos. But I do believe the motion did carry, so I think there's a incorrect voting designation for someone.
I may have that in my notes. I'm sure Renee could go back and look at the video. Is that correct, Mr. Hughes? Go back and confirm that. Okay. Thanks for catching that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Slayback, Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel,
Yes.
myself, I'm with it. Yes, that motion carries. Item 1D, superintendent's report.
First, I'd like to thank the high school staff and all of those that attended graduation on Friday night. It was fantastic. Just to have all the students there, to see the parents there supporting, to see all of you there that attended. It was a really good night. We had some great speeches, a great song. This first time Miss Abel sang, I think, in my time. So all went well. So again, Kate, for you and your staff especially, thank you for putting that together, and Nicole Conley, and because it was Heartland Schools graduation, not Heartland High School. We had Heartland High School, we had Legacy Alternative Ed, we had HBA. I think a total of, I counted 458 graduates. So it was a good night. So thank you very much for that. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Minsker to present the educational goals and continuity of learning plan in the year report. Mr. Minsker.
All right, good evening, everybody. I sent a copy in the board to the board earlier, about a week and a half ago, and it's also, I put a copy in front of you as well. And before I get to kind of the data, I have the spiel I have to read here that the state requires me to read. So just make sure everybody understands what this is. As a reminder, this educational goals and continuity of learning plan is required for all school districts in the state of Michigan under section 98B of Public Act 144 of 2022. It was enacted by the state of Michigan following the pandemic-related academic impact that schools experienced in an attempt to ensure that school districts have goals related to student growth in reading and math. Part of that requirement is that districts use benchmark assessments to track growth, as well as report updates and results at board meetings in the fall, in February, and again at the end of the school year. This is the end of the year report. For the legislation, this report is also posted on the transparency page on the district website for the community to see. As a reminder, the mandated goals and requirements for the state are set for every school district in the state. The data from the benchmark assessments is pulled by the state in order for the legislature to track trends in student growth. This is the year-end results from the benchmark assessments in Heartland that is then gathered with all the other state data from the other districts in the state. And they pull it all together and they give it to the legislature to look at. So for ELA, and this data is the data that they collect. In your report, I have a lot more data that I'll explain in a second, but this is the only data the state collects, so I'm going to read right here. In ELA, early literacy benchmark is given to K2, and 93% of all students showed an increased scale score from fall to spring. And for grades 3 through 8, the Smarter Balanced assessment, 97% of all students showed an improved scale score from fall to spring. For math, in K2, early literacy benchmark, 95% of all students showed an improved scale score from fall to spring. And in 3 through 8 Smarter Balance assessment, 98% of all students showed an improved scale score from fall to spring. Separate from these mandates, I also gave you other data, which includes proficiency data from fall to spring in the early literacy benchmark and Smarter Balance and the DRA. So those are the proficiency data, not necessarily if they improved from fall to spring, but what they got in the fall and the spring. And I did that because we also use this data as snapshots to gauge student improvement. But it's really important that you put this data in proper context. These formative assessments, MSTEP, PSAT, SAT, all those assessments we use together. And overall student performance should be looked at in all areas of students' educational profile. So this is just one snapshot of how a student did, not their entire profile. But that being said, we're really pleased with the increased scale scores that they achieved in this specific benchmark assessment for this year. The MSTEP data is still coming in. That will be reported out to you as soon as I get it, and the embargo is lifted. There's an embargo on that data. And then PSAT should be, and SAT should be out in the next couple of weeks. And I'll report that to you when I get that as well. Any questions?
You just mentioned there's an embargo on the data. What's that mean?
The state puts an embargo when it's all initial data, so it's not final yet. For example, the ELA data is the writing still has to be scored. So whatever scores that are in there right now is not the final scores. So I can't present them yet because they're not final.
Board, if you have phones or anything on and it's up by your microphone, this is where we get the static from the telephones, just so you know. So if you have those, if you could move them away from your mics. So ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item 1E would be our new hires.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Sharon Boisvert for the 2023-24 school year at the step 1 VA salary track, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Claybaugh. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondie,
Yes.
and myself, yes, that motion carries. Congratulations.
Good evening, everybody. Very privileged to introduce Sharon Boisford, JK teacher at Lakes. Junior kindergarten is, well, kindergarten. I tell people, I think I've been at every level now, either as an administrator or teacher in kindergarten. JK is challenging. Perhaps you can make an argument of the widest variety of abilities and experiences coming in. And these kids are amazing. They just want to be cared about and learn, and they need lots of structure. For a lot of these junior kindergarten kids, it's their first time with all day, every day schooling. So that rigor is something we have to build throughout the year. Sharon is simply one of the calmest people. The demeanor she has, always providing kids with the structure they need, the TLC they need, caring about them every day, and they're always leaving with smiles, and it's not easy, and she does a great job. Very happy to have her. Our husband Jim is here, who's a local business owner, and she has a son going into 9th grade, a daughter going into 8th grade, and really glad to have her as part of our Lakes community and also, of course, the Heartland community. So thank you. Congratulations, Sharon.
I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Abigail Colvin for the 2023-24 school year at the step 2 MA salary track, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
Motion by Mrs. Claybaugh, support by Mrs. Coleman. Hearing discussion. Hearing none, Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondie,
Yes.
and myself, yes, that motion carries. Congratulations.
So I have to tease Abby a little bit. I teased her a little before. So the first question we ask is tell us about yourself. So Abby said, oh my gosh, well, I love dogs and I love the lake. And I'm like, Abby, were you stalking my Facebook page? Because if you see mine, it's about dogs, but she did her research. So, but no, she's seriously during our interview just wowed us. I mean, just a natural. We are so excited to have Abby at our school, and she is going to fit in perfectly with all of our staff. So Abby, welcome to our Farms family.
Thank you. And then I would just like to thank the board for my recommendation and for being able to be a part of the Heartland community. It's truly a blessing. Thank you all.
I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Whitney Engel for the 2023-24 school year at step 2, BA salary tract, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
Got in there first motion by Mrs. Shaw, let's go support by Mrs. Coleman. Hearing any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Montiel.
Yes.
And also, yes, that motion carries. Congratulations.
I had to write things down. I have a lot of hires today. So Whitney comes to us from Weberville, but most importantly, she is a Heartland grad. She actually did her student teaching the year before last in our building with Lori Clay. And then she did a long-term sub position within our building and it was phenomenal. We didn't get her in time last year, but we got her this year. So Whitney, you again will fit perfectly. She again impressed us so much and just a natural teacher. So welcome.
I also just want to say thank you for the opportunity to join the Heartland community. Like Mrs. Cheney said, this is very much home for me. It's the district that I graduated from, so I'm very happy to be back and thank you for the opportunity.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Lisa Grenier for the 2023-24 school year at the step 2 MA salary tract, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Blaylock. Discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel.
Yes.
Myself only yes, that motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are pleased to secure another very talented and caring educator at Village. And Lisa has been part of our team for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, she did a long-term sub in first grade and in fourth grade. And last year, she rocked it out in third grade. So we are super glad to make sure we keep her as part of our Village family. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Rachel Jacobs for the 2023-24 school year at step 4, BA salary tract, pending verification of credentials and Public Acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Congratulations, that motion carried.
We have another Heartland grad, Rachel taught for a while, graduated from Heartland, taught for a while in Minnesota, Missouri. I keep getting them mixed up. I just asked her before, sorry, Missouri. But she had the longest interview of everyone. It was a whole year, right? So she was here all year with us, proved herself within the first couple days that she was going to be an awesome teacher. So next year she's going to teach 5th grade science and math for us. And again, and her kids are going through Heartland also. So we are super glad you're here. Congratulations.
thank you to the board, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Van Ups. I am so excited to be home and to start this journey again.
I recommend that the Board of Education, on the recommendation of the superintendent, offers a probationary teaching contract to Rachel Kania for the 2023-24 school year at the step 1 BA +10 salary track pending verification of credentials and public acts 99, 83, and 189 requirements if applicable. I'm really sorry, Rachel, if I butchered that last name.
Motion by Mrs. Claybaugh, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Congratulations. That motion carried.
My last one, I promise. So Rachel was one of our first interviews we had this year, and when we got done, she comes out of, she's teaching special education, right out of college from Grand Valley. And honestly, she left the room and I said to Adrian Dean, I said, can we go get her now? Because I was so blown away by her interview and her knowledge and her enthusiasm. So again, another great fit at Farms, and we're super excited. Congratulations. Thank you.
I just want to thank the board. I'm so excited to be in Heartland, such a great community and a great district, and I'm super eager to get into the classroom and meet my students. So thank you.
Mr. Hughes, did you want to just talk about the recent number of hires that we had? Or just
Yes.
mention why that would be?
I gotta tell the board and the audience, if you don't know this, we have a process that works really well for us. And when the principals recommend hires, they come and they meet with Scott and I. And we get an opportunity to share about the culture of Heartland, talk about the family of Heartland, talk about the 3 Rs, what it means to us. And it's really informal. And we actually start the meeting every time with, you're not here for us not to hire you. We're just here to just have a conversation so you get to know us. And I am blown away by the quality of people that get sent to us year after year. Mickey, I think you still have some hires, if I'm not mistaken. We'll have quite a few hires on the 26th that will come forward, including an athletic director. We've got a lot of things going on. People want to be in Heartland, and so far, a lot of applicants for our positions coming from school districts that they want to come to Heartland. And this is what's so awesome about the process, is they want to be here with us. And I just, the caliber, it just blows me away every time we sit down and we look out and I see these young people here and I go, wow, right? So I just want you to know that this is just a really special place. And a lot of the teachers tell us that are coming from other school districts, they never met the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. We're like, are you kidding me? Like, this is our process. And so we really appreciate that. And it's just exciting. So I want to share that with you and thank our team for always sending us good candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. And then just on kind of that same note, I thought it was quite impressive that either they're an alumni or they have kids that are going to be in the district. So I think that speaks highly of the candidates and why they want to be here and the right things that we're doing in the district. So thank you to all those new hires. We're excited to have you. Item 1F. All the public. I want to remind the speakers that they can please express themselves in a civil manner with due respect and dignity, privacy for others who may be affected by your comments. Each speaker may be limited to 3 minutes. It worked out last time where we had a timer going, it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You're going to hear a little bell. And then that's your indication of kind of, you have about 30 seconds to kind of wrap things up. That way you will be able to speak your full time. So.
Just can you just note something? There are children in the audience, so just everyone be mindful of that during their calls to public comments.
Yep. civil manner. That would be the hope. First card, I have Carrie Schreier. Sorry, Carrie Schreier.
That's okay. I came in running to fill that out before 6:30, so my name wasn't that legible. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Schreier. I'm a Heartland parent and resident, and I'm here to speak in regards to the recommended changes to policy number 8805 regarding flags and displays in the classrooms, as well as to specifically address concerns regarding Mr. Gogolewski's intention and public commentary. Mr. Gogolewski has recently engaged in a discussion on Facebook regarding students being disciplined for continuing to call a student by a different name. I'm not privy to the details, but it appears to be a bullying situation where a student was teased and or taunted by the use of a name other than the student's preferred name. Glenn said the following, and this is a direct quote: no one has the right to force anyone to call them a name other than their legal name. Secondly, I will not enable someone suffering from gender dysphoria or other neuroses or disorders to play pretend, much like psychiatrists do not play along with a schizophrenic who claims an invisible friend is next to them. I have several concerns regarding this statement. The first being that Glenn is not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a reproductive endocrinologist, or a treating physician of any student in Heartland. I fail to understand why he feels that his opinion not only can, but should override the decisions of students, treating physicians, and their parents. When I asked how exactly we would determine what names students could or should use in class, if we were restricting this to legal names, he replied with, "Carrie, please stop playing dumb. This isn't about nicknames. This is about changing John to Jane, not Thomas to Timmy. And I'm not taking away parents' rights to call their kids what they want, no matter how recklessly stupid and irresponsible it may be. I am taking no parents' rights away by refusing to play pretend, and they have no right to force me to go along with it. What part of this has you flummoxed?" Mr. Gogolewski has determined that his opinion alone should be the overarching decision of what children are to be called in class, not their parents, not the students. It strikes me as quite odd that the person who ran for the board on the basis of emphasizing parents' rights is expressly wishing to take away the most basic of parental decisions, what name is used for their students, and then is defending that forcing a child to use a different name is not impacting their parents' rights. Glenn went on to say it was quite simple, quote, "When a child is first enrolled, their biological sex is on their enrollment form. This, according to Glenn, is what should be used to determine if children are addressed by male or female names, not what their parents prefer them to be called." Mr. Gogolewski apparently feels that he has the right to call children whatever he wants based on their biological gender assigned at birth and or their presumed gender based on their appearance. I have daughters named Avery and Ellery. They're both gender neutral names. Are they allowed to use them at school? My son has long hair and was often mistaken for a girl when he was younger. Is a teacher going to have to check to see what his biological gender is on his registration forms to determine if he can be called Isaac? As we discussed the policy changes to Rule 8805 that would micromanage what stickers and decorations teachers can have in their classroom, I encourage you to keep in mind Mr. Gogolewski's extreme beliefs. How far is he willing to go to micromanage our LGBTQ youth completely out of sight in school? First, the district decides what stickers or posters can be in a classroom, and then the district decides what your name is. Please vote no on the revisions to 8805 and continue to support all of the students in Heartland schools. As Mr. Gogolewski himself has repeatedly said, Heartland should be safe to all. And at the very basic level, that means using their name and protecting the right to be called by their name. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schreier. Mr. Patel?
The current rainbow safe space sign has been an inflammatory and controversial subject in Heartland for over 2 years now. This very divisive sign is never approved to be hung in the schools because of its sexual nature and favoritism it shows to one group of students while discriminating against another. It has needlessly divided the community. No group of students deserves to be bullied, but at the same time, no group deserves special treatment because of their lifestyle or beliefs either. Everyone should receive fair and equitable treatment by the Heartland administrators, and up until now, that has not been the case. The good news is that we now have a solution, a new safe space sign that represents all Heartland students. I want to thank Michelle Blondale and a group of 9 traditional value students that have worked tirelessly for the past 2 years to end this discrimination. I contacted Megan Glayback and Cindy Shaw at the end of April about the need for a redesign of the current sign and what that sign should look like so it would represent all students. It was after my conversation with Cindy that she had some students at the high school come up with several designs using these parameters. Cindy ran these designs by Chris Costa and Kristen Coleman, and I met with Cindy on May 15th to review the one that had been selected. I thought the redesign looked good, with the exception of minor tweak to the name. After nearly 2 years of inaction by administrators and some board members, there is now agreement on a sign and a way forward. Cindy has commented that she had a kid in high school and she felt it was time to do something about safe space. So I want to thank Cindy, Chris, Kristen, and Megan for finally recognizing the need and for getting on board at the last minute. The rainbow safe space sign should be removed and the new safe place sign should be hung in every classroom in Heartland. We should have a standardized classroom that consists of the American flag, a new safe place sign, and the 3 R's. The benefits of this are that a student will get familiar with these items in kindergarten, and it remains the same through the time until they graduate. So there's no confusion on what is being displayed or the meaning behind it. These 3 items are inclusive of all students, and there's no need for anything else. It should also be put into policy that this new safe place sign cannot be modified in any way, color, shape, etc., so as to not cause confusion or controversy. A stop sign is always a stop sign wherever you go. It never changes, always the same shape, same color. That's what we want, a sign that represents all students and never changes. I hope you will all support the new design, and then we can get back to the important issues such as getting our kids ready to compete in the real world.
Mrs. Tonkovich?
Thank you once again for letting me come. What I'm going to speak is going to take 2 minutes and then a little comment afterwards. Go. One nation under God, referring to our flag. Who is this God that the public schools are fearful of? Everyone has questions about God. What is he like? Does he really care about me? How do I get to know him? On one occasion, a class of kindergarten students, or pre-kindergarten, were drawing pictures about people from the Bible. This is back in the 80s. One youngster was especially intent in her work. "What are you drawing?" an observer asked. "Oh, I'm drawing a picture of God," she replied confidently. "Well, that's a nice idea," he answered, "but really no one knows what God looks like." "Oh, they will when I get done," she replied, and hurried on with her drawing. Think about that for a moment. They'll know what God looks like when I get done. An overstatement? Yes, for a 4-year-old, but not for Christ Jesus. He came to show us God. One of the names given to Jesus, Emmanuel, means God with us. When Jesus was on earth, God was on earth. The Bible says that God was in Christ reconciling the world unto himself, and he's still doing it today. When Jesus came to earth, he revealed God. So God is compassionate. Through him is the knowledge of God. He is the bread of life. Jesus is to your soul what bread is to your body. On the cross of Calvary, Jesus fully revealed God's love. When he died, he was actually taking our place that we might live. There he took the punishment that you and I deserve for our sins. Why? The answer is God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That's John 3:16. I think some of us may know that. By Christ's birth, his life on earth, his death, and his resurrection from the grave, we can know God. He promises, "I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me." Do you know God, or do you just know about him? There's a big difference. Knowing him requires personal faith in his son and what he has accomplished for you. Coming to him is your admission that you are turning from your sins to receive Jesus as your Savior and Lord. Jesus Christ invites you. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice, opens the door, I will come in. Christ is God's answers to all your questions. A change of heart, which I mentioned before, and regarding my comment. Regarding separation of church and state, that's a myth, of course, which I proved to you back a couple months ago by the facts. And this is really separation of God and man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Don Schmidt.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to briefly comment on 3 items tonight. First is the SRO SSO recommendations, policy 8805, and the recommendation to hire a director of student services. One, my family and I were very happy to read the school resource officer, security officer recommendations to help deter and address potential violent threats to our children, teachers, and staff. I strongly encourage the board to pursue appropriate contracts for this service. Number 2, my family and I agree with the flags and displays 8805 policy update to require that only content neutral media be used in the district. The use of media that influences social, sexual, or political causes has no place in our schools. Only causes division within the community and society. And you're hearing the evidence of this tonight, this division tonight. And number 3, I was quite surprised to read on page 46 of the agenda, the recommendation to hire a director of student services, especially the job description. The following items are contained in the job description: racial, education, and policy compliance, student focus groups at the middle school and high school racial caucuses, district climate and culture race-based surveys, and diversity, equity, and inclusion committee chair for the district. So I'm kind of confused as to why 1/3 of the job description line items are race-based. Well, I'm guessing this is a position was developed to coordinate several administrative functions. It seems to me that district leadership is using the staffing opportunity to add ideologically driven work streams into our children's educational experiences. I ask the board not to support this position recommendation as it's currently written. In closing, if any of the above is any indication of the direction of leadership, unless there's a change, I'm concerned we might see a reduction in HCS student enrollment. Let's continue the education of our kids being the top priority in Heartland schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Lori?
This isn't handicap friendly, is it? I was wanting a wheelchair. But I will put this a little closer in case I have to sit. Okay. Hey,
You look
Chris.
fabulous.
Thank you. Where are you? Gosh, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I love the school. This was my library. That was nice of you, Michelle. Thank you. As you all know, that I had a really bad accident last September at the Silver Lake Dunes. So 2 long rods, complete paraplegic, they said. And I said, no, thank you, God. But anyways, please, Chris, it's hard for 3 minutes, so I'm going to try my best. And I need you to respect that. It's been a long time, and I came here today because the lady who asked me to speak for today, and this is why I came here, because I wanted to come here without this cane, okay? Because I'm gonna get there. But my point is, her sister got in a bad accident. Her son was one of the 3 boys 2 weeks before Heartland Middle School got out, was involved, and I will not use any names. I love any child for whoever they are. I love everybody. Let's get that straight. I just have a different opinion than some. Well, these 3 boys called her by her birth name accidentally. My son was there. He witnessed it. He's like, Mom, I've known her since kindergarten. I like her. It's hard for me to identify her as what she wants. And he wasn't being, he's got me as a mom. I can't even remember my own kids' names. I would never in a million years want to hurt someone's feelings by not wanting to call them by their real or what they want to identify as or whatever. But these 3 boys, one of the moms instantly pulled their child out because they said it was a 3-day suspension and it was under sexual harassment. Are you kidding me? Now, I don't lie. You can look it up. You can ask. I'm up here for the mother who couldn't speak because her sister was in a car accident, not even 2 hours ago. I am so sorry to say this. This is horrible. I can't even believe it's under sexual harassment. These kids will have this on their record for the rest of their life. Sexual harassment for calling another child by her birth name. And he said, Mom, I've known her since kindergarten. I would have accidentally said that and I would have been in trouble. So I just want to put that up, you know, that is just so wrong. Sexual harassment is me groping people, what we did in high school, and now we get in trouble for it. But that's sexual harassment, or coming on to somebody or meet me in the back room. That's sexual harassment. Title IX is getting changed and it's wrong. Now, if anybody wants to ask me, I can give them proof if they want it. Then a freshman I've known since forever. They're 3 generations here. And people said, if you don't like it, leave. Well, we've been here and we've had no problems. You guys came and it started. All that I'm saying is he touched somebody on the tap of their shoulder on the back, entering a classroom, which the principal at the high school, Heartland High School, told him that he had it videotaped and put him in a room. I believe it was a gym teacher. I could be wrong. In a private room and terror guy. They told him, oh, we got proof. We have you on this. It's sexual harassment. And they said you touched him improperly and blah, blah, blah. And finds out when the mother called me and she says, Lori, what do I do? And I said, you call up and you protect your child. Well, she found out, she asked him for the proof, Chris. They asked him for the proof, Glenn. And he says, I'm sorry, I didn't videotape it. What? You interrogated my son, you told him you had the proof, you told him it was sexual harassment, and you said you were going to suspend him. A couple days later, nothing. Then the female, I forget her name, is it Gregory? I'm not sure, one of the principals at the high school, I'll be finding out soon. And kept on calling and says, oh no, he's got some suspension. She says, for what? You know, sexually assaulting this kid. And she goes, what are you talking about? He touched him on the shoulder to say, excuse me. Now there is a game going around. They tap to introduce themselves to somebody they don't know. But it was marked under sexual harassment. And guess what she did? She instantly pulled her kid out of the school. Okay, I know these people. I grew up with them. This is horrible. I met her about a month ago at the election. She's awesome. I love everybody. My brother's gay. He graduated from here. My cousin's transgender. She's on my side. She tells me that she's transgender. She doesn't want any of this sexuality, pedophile stuff involved in what she is. I walked at the Fenton Parade 17 years ago with Mike and Mark for laundry. I love them. They're our cousins.
Thank you so much for,
Are you kidding?
I've let you go for almost 5 minutes.
Is that true?
So I just.
Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just,
I didn't want
it
to.
was a joke.
You should wrap up, like finish like.
I will, and I'm gonna get to the point. And my standing up this point is, you guys got to do your jobs, please, and protect these children. It doesn't matter who they identify as or what, have respect. I know if I was a kid again, I'd be in a lot of trouble because I wouldn't purposely not call the person by what they want to be called. Okay, and you guys got to give the other people that too. All right, and just have respect for everybody. I love everybody, and I want you to know that I love everybody. But I didn't know that, and Chris, I'm really proud because usually I thank you. I do. Hey, that's a lot for me to say that. I mean, that was so nice of you.
No, I appreciate that, Lori. Yeah, I know, you know, with any system to try to make sure people just don't consume the time. So yeah, thank you for your candor.
Exactly. But thank you guys, and I hope that you guys just listen to that. Love all of the kids. No one's trying to pick on anybody on purpose.
Thank you, Lori.
And if they are, pick them up.
Jesse Broadbeck.
Okay, all right, so I'm here tonight to ask you to vote no on the proposed policy revisory. I can't talk now, oh my gosh, I feel like I might need to have you restart. Okay, so anyhow, on the number 8805. This revision alone is a perfect example as to why the safe space stickers and flags and representation is needed for here in our district. I believe that it's vital for our kids to see safe space representation and know that they have adults in places that they can turn to feel accepted and supported at school. I asked my 7th, my 5th, my 3rd graders what they think what they think it means when they see rainbow stickers that say safe space at their schools. And they said that they think it means welcoming, kindness, that they're colorful, that they're caring. Oh my gosh, happy, that it might mean equality, and a place that you can talk, and a place that will help you. I understand that that should be the goal for every space in every classroom in this district, regardless of a sticker. However, that simply is not the case. So the adults of this community and on the school board should be looking out for all kids, especially the ones that are marginalized. I attended a school board meeting back in the fall where I witnessed an incredible strength from a Heartland youth. She came out in this type of a public setting as a brave, beautiful trans young woman. Her words to the boards were met with heckling, eye rolls, and yelling from people. Pretty sure somebody told her to sit down, from adults that are not on this board. This is a reason that we need safe space stickers. One of my kids had the opportunity to make their own country at school this past year. It was such a cool project, right? Like you can create anything you want to. But when she was leaving her class, there were 2 students that were talking about how in their perfect country, they would hang all the gay people. This is a reason that we need safe space stickers with rainbows. The fact that there are so many homophobic social media posts and jokes being shared by adults in this community is a reason that we need safe space stickers, not a general one with rainbows. There are kids in this community that call their people gay on the playground or on school buses as a put down. And this is a reason that we need safe space rainbow stickers. These stickers are not harmful and they do not leave anyone out. Do more research if you think otherwise. They reinforce that classroom or staff members, that classroom or staff member's office is an environment where people from marginalized communities can feel confident and that they will not experience discrimination, harassment, or any other emotional, physical harm. These stickers promote positive mental health and a sense of belonging, validation, and empowerment. Removing them could cause harm and isolate students and families who are already singled out for simply being themselves on a daily basis. If you step outside this community, you will find safe space, rainbows, and inclusion flags and stickers all over. Removing stickers in question, these stickers in question would be a massive step back for the school district. So because I want my children and their friends to grow and experience school in an inclusive, safe environment where they can be their most authentic selves, I ask you to vote no on this revision and continue to allow the wonderful teachers and staff who do provide safe spaces to passionately do so while supporting and teaching all of the kids in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pryor. Jeff Scott.
Good evening. Tonight, you're going to be voting on a Freedom of Information Act fee appeal I submitted to the board relating to a FOIA request I submitted about student safety. The administration is retaliating against me by trying to charge an absurd hourly rate to process my FOIA request in violation of Michigan law. This is retaliatory, shameful, and flat out illegal. In your agenda, the superintendent has recommended you uphold the fee he quoted. Is there a conflict of interest here? Is there something he doesn't want us to see? Well, what have I requested? Simple, the confirmation emails sent to the district every time a crime report is submitted to the Michigan State Police Office of School Safety. I've written my request so simple, my 5th grader could perform it. So I know any employee that is part of the technology team could easily carry off this search. We're literally searching for one incoming email address. That means by law, you can only charge me the lowest hourly rate of the employee, the lowest paid employee capable of searching the email. However, the administration must not have very much faith in these individuals because they decided that only the CTO, Mr. Usher, can perform such a simple search. Amazingly enough, then they can charge me his hourly rate of $75. Well, at least it's a quick search, right? One incoming email? No. Mr. Hughes says it will take Mr. Usher a day and a half. That's not a joke. A day and a half to search one incoming email address. That brings my total for my FOIA request to just shy of $1,000. As I said, this is retaliatory. Michigan FOIA law describes this adherent behavior as arbitrary and capricious. I'm happy to take questions when you get to this item on your agenda, but I will leave you with the three options you have under Michigan law. You can vote to waive the fees, which is what I have requested. 2, you can vote to uphold the fees, or 3, you can vote to modify the fees. However, if you choose to uphold or modify the fees, the 7 of you are required by law to certify that the fee structure is in accordance with Michigan FOIA law. Mr. Hughes didn't put that in your agenda, did he? If you certify this retaliatory, arbitrary, and capricious fee structure, you will be in violation of Michigan FOIA law. Furthermore, you will send a message to the residents of this community that you don't really care about transparency and you would rather close these doors and lock us out. I look forward to hearing your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Angela Yarber.
Good evening. My name is Angela Yarber, and as of last Friday, I have 2 graduates of Heartland High School in my family, as well as an incoming freshman. I didn't start paying attention to school board meetings until last October, when it became clear to me that I needed to carefully research candidates to make an informed school board vote last November. I beseech all school board members to take an active role as elected representatives on behalf of Heartland students. Some school board members seem to rubber stamp every idea they are presented with and never use critical thinking skills to question information given. Some school board members ignore parent emails. Such was the case last fall when a mom contacted this board, some of the members present, about an inappropriate book that her child had to read, and she was ignored for a month. Some school board members merely refer parents back to Mr. Hughes, which is many times futile, as those parents have often already contacted Mr. Hughes and are looking for further recourse. I really don't know why some of you ran, as you don't seem to want to make a difference. You just want more of the status quo. Maybe it's for the photo ops on Facebook and Twitter. I don't know. It's not clear to me. Heartland has become a microcosm of the divisive issues that plague our nation. At the last school board meeting, 3 people spoke showing a photo of a swastika that allegedly was painted on a tree in Dunham Lake. But Dunham Lake splits counties, and I later learned that it was Oakland County sheriffs who investigated the complaint. During the call to the public, the speakers made a connection to the newly elected school board members. Dunham Lake has an active Facebook neighborhood page, and 2 of my friends who are members never saw anything about the swastika posted in the group. I am not sure of the conclusion of the investigation, but I would like to know, as it seems really easy to taint people's names and to run with a story. We are in danger of Heartland getting a reputation it does not deserve, and I implore school board members to seek and defend truth, not to give in to social drama that does not promote the ideals of reason, respect, and responsibility. Please do your part to be active, engaged members of the Board of Education who practice reason and responsibility yourselves.
Thank you, Mrs. Yarber. Mary Peters.
Right, knee surgery and it's still bothering me. Okay. Want to thank you for the opportunity to present the petition. I am delivering on behalf of the Heartland stakeholders, meaning they specify their parents, caregivers of students, school staff, or taxpayers. They all want to see Heartland Consolidated Schools to remain inclusive. By the time we saw what was being proposed tonight, there was only 72 hours to circulate this petition. Though we are really happy with getting hundreds of signatures, there continues to be support coming in as people keep seeing it for the first time. We are turning in what we have now, but we'll also update you later on the total number of supporters. The petition states, and I'll quote, Heartland Consolidated Schools should be inclusive for all students, no matter what their sexual orientation, gender expression, religion, abilities, or other lived experiences. Bullying and exclusion are serious issues that many students face for a variety of reasons. We believe that outward signs of support for marginalized students are not only the right thing to do, but what we stand for as a community. By signing this petition, I urge the Heartland School Board to continue to support our most vulnerable students and create an atmosphere in our schools that allows for the visibility and sense of belonging for all of our students. And that's the end of the quote. There is a growing concern in our community about the welfare and well-being of our students. Too many adults are speaking and encouraging action against students of our public school district. As a school board, you have the ability and obligation to prevent this. Every decision coming from our school board members working for us in our district must come from a place of support for all students as individuals. We can do that. We have done that. The rainbow stickers have been in classrooms for a long time with no problems until it was made a problem very recent, which questions the sincerity of the motive here. It's hard to comprehend adults sitting on our school board wanting to prevent rainbows in a classroom. There are many ways teachers professionally show support for all their students. Please stop creating barriers among our students and teachers and move on from the stickers and get back to business. Please vote no on the policy revision for school board policy number 8805. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Peters. Ella,
He gave up on the last name.
well, Ella, in my defense, your handwriting was similar to mine and it's just,
I'm sorry. I would like to talk to all of you about action item 2G, specifically policy 8805. As a refresher, I will read what the proposal adds. It adds, any media, including signs, posters, flags, stickers, etc., depicting any social and or political causes unrelated to the daily curriculum shall not be allowed in schools and classrooms unless the media or items are for the sole purpose of classroom discussion as part of the curriculum for that day and subject. It is my understanding that the purpose of this policy is to ban the safe space stickers that some teachers have. I don't like this goal because it shows that the school just doesn't care about LGBT kids. The proposed replacement is meaningless to a queer kid. When I was in school, homophobic and transphobic jokes were very common, and that is why we need the rainbow stickers. However, in addition to the targeting of queer and trans kids, there's also the question of what is a social cause, because that doesn't just include LGBT people existing. Hunger, alcohol, drug use, obesity, and healthcare are all social causes. Any posters advertising the food bank or soliciting donations for the food bank
would have to go because that would depict the social cause of hunger. Any posters telling kids to not drink or to not do drugs would have to go, since that's also a social cause. Any posters about drunk driving would have to go because that's also a social cause. See that door in the back of the room back there with all those posters? Most of those posters would have to go because they depict social causes, whether autism or healthcare or diabetes, exactly. Yes. So there's probably many other examples that I'm not thinking of, but the important thing is that in the proposed policy, it's just way too broad and you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Another question I have is, what if a student walked into class with a pride sticker on their backpack? That seems to me like that would be banned now because they now have the media with a pride sticker in the school. That looks to me like a blatant violation of the free speech of students, since a pride sticker does not materially or substantially interfere with anything. And a pride sticker is a type of speech. So not only are you throwing out the baby with the bathwater, you are also restricting the free speech of students. This policy just seems hastily written and too broad. And because of that, I don't think it should be adopted. There's just a lot of questions to be answered regarding the unintended consequences, not to mention the targeting of queer and trans kids. So that is why I think you should vote no on this policy.
Thank you, Alan. Pride?
Hi, everyone. So we meet again. So excited to be here tonight, aren't you all? All right, so I just have a few comments. If you're a U of M fan and you see an Ohio State sticker on a teacher's door, you are allowed to be personally offended. But an Ohio State sticker is not offensive in its existence, merely just in how you feel about it. Now you want to loudly proclaim that Ohio State is offensive to me, and I'm afraid other students in there would discriminate against me because I'm not a part of the club. You know, the people that support Ohio State. So I want all Ohio State stickers removed. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that think this anyway, but does this logically make sense? I mean, this seems rather overly sensitive behavior from a crowd who says they dislike government overreach. So again, I ask you, where your rights end and mine begin? I'm quite sure a few of you would have something to say about my hair if I asked. But here I am customizing myself like a video game character because life is short and this is my pursuit of happiness. And oh, by the way, I didn't ask. Remember that if something offends your eye, you should pluck it out and cast it aside. Next, I want to address something that happened at the March meeting. I was not going to bring it up, but since it seems to have come back around, I think I should. I was literally chased to my seat by some unhinged lady screaming about who would pay for religious instruction for anyone who wants a school that reflects their personal superstitions. Well, I have an answer for you in case you were all interested. I did my homework, and do you know what I found? I found out the reason why churches are tax exempt. Churches are charities. So if you can't afford a parochial school, please contact your religious leaders for a scholarship. I'm sure they would be thrilled to have you. And for the ones out there claiming the stance they take isn't based in religion, please feel free to join one of our board members' children over at Cheryl Stockwell, where I've heard they don't have rainbow stickers or safe spaces. So, as my favorite way to end my speeches, I have more words here from our founding fathers. Leave the matter of religion to the family altar, the church, and the private school, supported entirely by private contributions. Keep the church and state forever separate. Ulysses S. Grant. The clergy, by getting themselves established by law and ingrafted into the machine of government, have been a very formidable engine against the civil and religious rights of man. Thomas Jefferson.
Bob M.
Good evening. I'm Bob Rowan. I'm here to shine some light on Pride Month. The one who is really filled with pride, Paul Pride, evil pride, all taught by enemy himself, Satan. And I want to read out of this Isaiah 14, 12, 13, and 14. How are you fallen? This is Lucifer talking. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did waken the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt all throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation and the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. If you look at this, what is the middle letter in pride? Satan is mentions I 5 times in the verses. I's in the middle of pride. Take out the P or the PR and the TH, and you'll have demon. We are walking through a time most would call a nightmare, but we see a time for wake up, wake up. People are finally starting to see where something is not right. Did you know that the rainbow has 7 colors? God's promise, he would never flood the earth again. The pride flag has 6 colors, God's perfect number 7, while Satan's number is 666. That's because of the rainbow. Rainbow belongs to God, while pride was Satan's original sin. It's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you.
Michelle Canner.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Michelle Dale Canner. My family have been taxpaying and voting members of the Heartland Consolidated Schools community since 1939. My extended family members attended Heartland schools in the 40s, and the 50s. My husband and I, along with our son and grandson, are all K-12 attendees and graduates. I've been teaching in the district since 1985, when I began volunteering to teach dental health education to students. This past year, I completed my 34th year as an educator at Heartland Consolidated Schools. During my time as a student in the 60s and 70s, and throughout my experience as a parent, grandparent, and an educator from the 90s to present day, the one aspect of Heartland Schools that has always been at the forefront has been the feeling of a safe and secure environment where learning can take place. The idea that it takes a village really sums up the core value of the educational journey through Heartland Consolidated Schools. As a student, I always felt that every school I attended was a safe and caring place. I was never afraid to talk to my teachers about the concerns that I had, and I knew if I needed a safe place, I could voice those concerns to my teachers. As a parent and grandparent, I felt that the needs of my son and grandson were always positive and caring in every manner that the district had available. As an employee of the district on a daily basis, I provide a classroom that's safe and secure for all my students. Every day, I feel supported by this district in my role as an educator. In the past year, I've noticed that the atmosphere in this community has changed. Suddenly, the family approach of Heartland Consolidated Schools is no longer what seems to be the focus. Negativity and accusations of wrongdoing are constantly at the forefront when discussing Heartland board policies. The idea of educating all students seems to no longer be the goal of this board. To quote the Board of Education page on the Heartland Consolidated Schools website, Heartland Consolidated Schools believes in respect, respecting abilities, qualities, achievements, differences, similarities of all individuals. HCS provides the best possible education experience for students, eliminating barriers of all policies with our policies, practices, and procedures. And we do not have those that would limit the ability of full participation in what we offer. Heartland Schools strives to be a safe and welcoming place for all students. We will not accept discrimination or harassment in any form. We will not direct or compel students to personally conform to any person or group or superior or inferior based on sex, sexuality orientation or transgender identity, disability, age, weight, English speaking, race, class, ethnicity, religion, color, national origin, or ancestry. We are all Heartland Eagles. That being said, I would hope that the Board of Education thinks long and hard before enacting policies that would be in direct conflict to this mission statement. I would remind you that there are federal and state laws that prohibit policies that encourage discrimination. Making a policy change without doing your due diligence is opening up the district for lawsuits in the future. As a Heartland School Board member, you were elected by the public. Your position is nonpartisan. As a member of the community, it is your task to put aside your personal feelings and make decisions that are in the best interest of all of the community members of this district, and also to be fiscally responsible. Deliberately enacting a policy that changes the very well-being may open up the district to lawsuits down the road that blatantly are discriminatory. I highly doubt that the community wants you, our elected board members, to deliberately waste resources in this matter. In closing, I would like to remind you the goal of public education as stated by the Michigan Department of Education. Every learner in Michigan's public schools will have an inspiring, engaging, and caring environment that fosters creative, critical thinkers who believe in their ability to positively influence Michigan and the world beyond. As elected members of the board, I truly hope that you remember that our district serves every learner, and we cannot pick and choose who we serve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you to call the public for coming out. That was the final card. Item 1G, board reports and requests. Mr. Goldwasser.
Thank you, Mr. Cotta. A lot of good discussion here in the call to public, or I should say good commentary regarding the fears of discrimination by the removal of a sticker. One thing I just want to ask as sort of a rhetorical question, just a little food for thought, you can think about this. If a sticker is the only thing that makes kids feel safe, what does that say about those teachers that don't have a sticker on their door?
Who said that?
Keep going, Mr. Goldwasser.
Right. If we are not communicating a child's safety and welfare in the classroom, then don't you think we should get rid of the teachers that aren't communicating that? Wow, we must have a lot that just don't care about kids. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I want to let you know that lo and behold, we are not going to remove a sticker and not let kids feel safe because there's no sticker on the door. I actually understand that we are going to propose a new sticker for a safe place for all students that is going to replace the rainbow sticker. That includes students who are Christian, who are Muslim, who don't subscribe to certain sexual ideas, and so on. I mean, if we're going to be all inclusive, let's be all inclusive. Let's support everyone. And by the way, we already have a policy that kind of touches a little bit on the fact of teachers having stickers promoting special interests. And, you know, every time I hear somebody speak that someone's not going to feel safe because a sticker isn't on a door, all I can think of is that, well, I guess all kids are equal, but some kids are more equal than others. No, don't think so. If you take a look at policy 9700, it talks about school facilities or equipment may not be used as a means of producing or disseminating to the community any materials that advertise or promote a political party, political cause, or the candidacy of an individual. We already have statements on the books that are to some degree open to interpretation, but they could be made to mean talking about things like personal signage, personal beliefs, and so on. I don't understand the hysteria behind the removal of a sticker that costs 10 cents, as if this is going to cause irreparable harm to all of our students. It's not. So.
Sorry, folks, the call to public is done. I'm gonna ask that you please don't interrupt Mr. Bogleski during his board report. No. Be good, please.
And by the way, there are certain federal laws and regulations on the books already that talk about what is appropriate in a classroom setting and what a teacher can have and say and do. If you take a look at Garcetti versus Sabelos, 2006, it talks about the First Amendment does not entitle teachers to advocate for a particular viewpoint while teaching to a captive audience of students. Now, I will say this, what really disturbs me is that some people actually feel that kids are not going to know that they're not welcome and safe by a sticker. And this really, really gnaws at my skull here. It really does. Because if that's the case, we're doing an exceptionally poor job of communicating that to our students, and we better do better. Another thing too, there was a portion of our reason, respect, and responsibility pledge here. And you know what it says? And somebody already talked about this, but I want to reiterate I want to reiterate what that actually says and what it actually means. For respect, Heartland Schools strives to be a safe and welcoming place for all students. Now, the last time I checked, the word all is pretty much all encompassing. That means everyone. We will not accept discrimination or harassment in any form, and that includes bullying. We will not direct or compel students to personally confirm that any person or group is superior or inferior. And right after that, it's really interesting. I had Mr. Hughes explain this to me. There's a little addition right after that word inferior, based on sex, including sexual orientation, transgender identity, disability, age, height, weight. And apparently this was something that was put in place because the DOJ made a recommendation. So after we talked about every and all student, we all of a sudden subdivide them into identity politics, which for me is the #1 way to cause division and strife within a district. All means all. There's no debate. We are all Heartland Eagles. All is mentioned again. It's mentioned twice. So with that, later on tonight, I understand that somebody is going to give a presentation. I assume, from what I hear, there have been a couple of board members that have been working on a replacement sticker, and I think, Cindy, that might be what you were working on? Okay, and I think she may present that tonight. So we will have a sticker, but at the same time, we better ensure that when we say the word all, we mean all. Thank you.
Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say what an honor it was to be at graduation on Friday. I've been there as a parent, and to be there as a board member on stage, it was an honor to be there. did go through a few Kleenexes, especially after Mrs. Gregory's speech, and all the moms in the room, I think, felt the same. Congratulations to all of our 2023 graduates. So, you know, kids, I think $5 million in scholarships, and just so much to be proud of, and just goes to show you what we send out into the world from this district. So I am a proud parent, community member, board member. So congratulations. Just a reminder too, that the Heartland Chamber of Commerce is working on an art walk for September. For information, go to heartlandliving.com. It's free to enter for Heartland students. Adults can enter as well. So just a reminder, we're looking for students especially to enter. There's prize money, scholarship money. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Mrs. Coleman.
Echoing what both Cindy and Chuck said, graduation was spectacular. It was very moving, but in a good way. And it's always exciting to be there as a board member and just to witness the excitement, to see all the smiles, and feel the excitement in the room. It's always super cool. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I wanted to say thank you again to Mr. Comfort and to all of our retirees as they head out. We definitely appreciate all of your years of dedication and service and all you've done for our kids during your time in Heartland. I hope everyone enjoys some downtime over the summer, because Lord knows August will be here before we know it, and football practice begins. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Coleman. Mrs. Claylock.
Yes. Congrats certainly to all of our teachers, staff, students, families, support structures for our students on a successful year. Although I was not able to make it to graduation, I have to admit the photos that were posted on on our district's page gave me all the feels. I think I was talking with someone recently that I'm not a crier at all. I don't cry for anything, as a matter of fact. And for some reason, 4th grade clapouts, graduation, and home football games are 3 things that get me. And so, you know, thank you to everyone that's a part of that, that makes that a success for our students. It's certainly something to be very proud of. One thing that I do, a couple of things that I actually do want to note is, just for the board and really for the public, as we embark in this school resource officer program, hopefully, you know, moving forward, we're going to have to go through all of our policies and procedures with a fine-tooth comb and ensure that they actually match up. I think we're expecting these folks to come in and do things and fill gaps that perhaps we've had or we could have in the future. And so this is something that I think we're going to have to do, as I've been digging into policy procedure on various things. You know, I think that we have some room for improvement and some ways in which we need to tie the two together. So whoever would like to start that process with me, please feel free. I think we're going to have to tackle chunk by chunk, but to make sure it's relevant and make sure that we're following our own policy as the roles are switching and things will be in different buckets. Reporting will be in different buckets. We'll just have to be super cognizant of that. The second thing I want to discuss is rather interesting. You know, I think from when you talk about change management, when you talk about an environment of safety, really, in my world, is we have to be okay to say that we made a mistake. We have to be okay to say, you know what, we didn't do our best in this area, but we're going to learn from it and improve. And I'm really worried, actually, that we're not giving people the opportunity to say, you know what, we can do better. And that's really disappointing. It's really, it to me does not create a culture of safety, because people do not want to come forward and say, hey, you know, here's a gap here. I've done this and we need to fix it. And I think we need to turn that train rather quickly, because people should say, you know, hey, you identified X policy, we're not following it to the core, we need to improve upon it, or we don't have said policy and someone's identified it and we need to review it. It could be a policy, it could be a guideline, it could be a procedure. But for me on this board, I want our administrators, I want our teachers, I want our parents, I want our board, I want our superintendent, everyone to be able to say, we didn't do the best and we're gonna learn from it, because how are we gonna improve if we can't get to a point where we're saying we're learning from it? Just want to put that out there. I think it's very important moving forward. I think that we have to give each other grace in order to do that. And that's something that I don't think that we've been familiar with lately. And I encourage everyone to do that. And I'm not talking about big ticket items where, we certainly need to be accountable and hold ourselves responsible, but I'm talking about things in operation, things day to day, things structurally. I think we have to be okay, accepting some faults and improving upon those. Everything else that I have to say, I will review in policy changes, and so onto my board report.
Thank you, Mrs. Claiborne. Mr. Keller?
Okay, thank you. Again, just want to echo some of my colleagues and congratulations to the 2023 graduates. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the ceremony, but I did see that it was a very successful event, and again, congrats to everyone, and I wish all of the new student or the graduating students great success in their future endeavors. The girls softball team, I understand, is in the quarterfinals, I think tomorrow night, in fact, so I just want to wish them good luck tomorrow against the Grosse Pointe North team. Jackson Wilson, I understood, won the shot put event at the Michigan Champions Festival, so congratulations to him. And we represent the Eagles. And then I guess last but not least, Brianna Zabrowski, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, received the high school Best in Show award, so congratulations to her. I know she's been recognized a few other times, so very talented individual in Heartland, so congrats. Also wanted to just express my sincere thank you to the Livingston County deputies who protect our students and our staff the entire school year. We appreciate everything that you do for the Heartland Eagle family, and we appreciate that. I look forward to voting later tonight on potentially expanding our relationship with the local sheriff's office. Would also like to just commend Mr. Patillo, who spoke this evening, for his efforts working with some of the board members who I think previously may had not been in favor of some, I'll say, divisive political stickers, and not only that, but just replacing it with something that I think encompasses everyone. And I think that's just a great example of members of the community kind of getting together to try to find a solution to an issue. So I'm glad to see that. I also want to, I guess, just kind of give a general comment about what I would classify maybe as kind of a lack of information sometimes on some of the board packet items. I'm going to work with Mr. Hughes just to kind of give him my thoughts on potentially incorporating kind of standard methods and what we can provide to the board and the community to, I guess, make more informed decisions during some of these meetings. And I guess I'll just give an example. We did talk about it in the previous agenda item, which was the new hires. Again, I think, as a district, we do a great job of hiring individuals. But as a member of the board, I have some concerns that, as a body, we have the final say on someone joining our family, and yet as a board member, I only get to see their resume, and I don't even have a chance to speak with them or kind of understand what questions they were asked or how they were answered. And it's just kind of an observation. I think as a board, I hope others might be interested to know more about our hiring process and have an opportunity to just meet the folks, kind of like Mr. Hughes mentioned. He's not necessarily looking to derail someone being hired, but trying to understand and develop that relationship. So that's something that I think as a board, I'd like to see some changes or adoption in that area. Lastly, I'm eager to hear the final report from the state of Michigan regarding the pesticide issue that has been circulating in the community. I know personally, I'm not an advocate for using glyphosate in any products that I know are using today on certain areas, and Mr. Marino has provided some information on that. I'm glad that we're discontinuing its use, at least temporarily, and I hope that we can adopt that as a permanent measure so that no child is exposed to glyphosate, which is, you know, the active ingredient in Roundup. And I don't know how much everyone's researched into the Roundup, but there's a lot of concern, in my opinion, on its safety. So I don't want to see any of our kids exposed to unnecessary risks when there's other measures like pulling weeds and weed whacking that don't involve chemicals, you know, for kids that are in elementary school that potentially could be putting something in their mouth, right? So I think, you know, that's the last I wanted to say about that. And then any children that may have experienced any potential reaction to whatever it was, whether it was herbicides or other pesticides, I hope all the children are doing well. That ends my board report.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mrs. Conley.
Anyway, excuse me, I had some notes and I've forgotten them, so I'm gonna do my best to get out what I want to get out. You know, I've been in 2 previous graduations I was not able to attend, but it's huge and I can't imagine the planning that goes into it. And I heard that it went well, really well, and very enjoyable. So thanks to everybody that worked hard on that, because I know it means a lot to the families, kids graduating, and for it to go smoothly, that's their memory. So that's great. So thank you for that. Also, you know, being a board member, it's not so easy. I knew when I took the job that, you know, everybody would have a problem with some of the things that I was deciding to do. But I knew that the people that voted for me had in mind what you know, I know what their vision is, and their vision is to have an all-inclusive school, have the top-notch education, make sure it's safe and welcoming for all. We don't want to lose any more students, you know, and we don't run the day-to-day happenings at the school district. What we do is we implement policy. We have a vision of what we want the school district to look like, and that vision is based upon the community members. So we do read all the emails that we do. We may not respond to every single one, but we do read them all. At least I do. I think, you know, my colleagues do as well, because it's important to us. But I think that what needs to be known is that, you know, when we're up here talking, in fact, I recently had a TikTok made about me, so I don't know who did that, but so be it. And it was my talking about the rainbow flags. When I look at the big picture of, I work at a corporation, large corporation, we don't have flags around our building to make people feel welcome. We're professionals, we're kind to each other. Once something like that happens, it becomes divisive. And I know that in the business world, I know it's divisive. And in the school district, having a flag in the room is divisive in my mind. And for the people that I speak to, it's divisive for them as well. I early on had done, you know, when Len was saying, you know, thanks to Michelle, what I did was early on when I was a parent talking to the board, I saw the rainbow as a special interest group. And so I suggested that we add to them, and we have a sticker that it was for T for tradition, because things were getting a little, there was a struggle for kids that didn't identify with LGBTQIA+. And so what we wanted to do, instead of taking them down, we wanted to add to them and made a sticker that said T safe space, for traditional safe space. Some very intelligent students, very brave students, took them to the leadership of the school district and said, what does LGBTQIA, what does the rainbow stand for? And they admitted it was for LGBTQIA+. That's not them. It's not the kids that were standing in front of the administration. So they said, okay, well, we don't identify with that. Is it okay if we put this sticker up so that we feel represented? Do you know, it took months, nobody got back to those brave kids. And their father, you know, several of us who followed up, still didn't get anything. So we didn't want to take the sticker down. We wanted to add to it so that other kids felt welcome, because just because they're the majority, you know, if the kids, majority of the kids are straight, doesn't mean they're protected. Like, everybody's got this misconception that these kids are so protected. It's almost like it's worse for them right now because they have no freedom of speech. When you test a kid and you say, hey, let's put this sticker up and it doesn't represent you, they're going to push boundaries, because that's what it means to start growing up and creating your, in developing your critical thinking skills. No, I'm not an expert, but I have kids. I grew up myself. I know what it's like to be in a situation. I was a heavy girl. I was a bad girl. I got kicked on, but I didn't want a sticker to make me feel welcome. You know, I handled it. And back then, you embrace the fact that if you went through something tough, because it gave you stamina, and it provided you with strength for the future, because you know, you can't put a bubble wrap around kids. And then my mom's always said, kids are like waffles. You never know what you're gonna get. We try really hard to make sure that the first one's perfect, second one's perfect, but you never know what you're gonna get, right? And I know that my kids push the boundaries in speech. And before I came, I said, hey, one of my kids that graduated, I said, do you feel like Heartland, you know, is negative? He said, well, I remember when, you know, we used to make jokes about it, but it wasn't to be mean spirited. It's because we were testing, you know, we were pushing the boundaries, because that's what kids do when they grow up. So when we talk about being all inclusive and, you know, stopping kids from, you know, developing themselves, what are we going to do? Sit them in a desk and not let them, like, you know, experience anything because, you know, everybody needs to be kind. I'm not saying people shouldn't be kind. I'm saying that people need to understand that these are children. Kids are going to make mistakes. When I was a kid, we had, you know, principal had a paddle. It was okay back then, and now it's not. But, you know, if somebody said something wrong, the principal would say, hey, listen, knock it off. You go apologize to that kid and get back to your desk. And the kid was like, okay. And then the parents would be called and the kid would go home and the parents would handle it from there. They'd either get grounded or whatever. But now it seems like we're haranguing all of these kids and saying, okay, you don't fit into this group, so you're over here and you can't, you know, just stay right there. You're not gonna feel safe because of, you know, we don't have a sticker up. Because that's essentially what we're all saying, is if they don't have a sticker up, they don't feel safe, which we don't agree with. We want everybody to feel safe. Now, I hope it came out right, because there was a lot to say, and I know that somebody's gonna take it and twist it. I care about all kids. I do. I will take a bullet for anybody's child, because I believe that all kids matter. And I believe that every child has to grow up, they have to make mistakes, they have to, you know, like they on their own will create and develop relationships with who they feel comfortable with. It doesn't, you know, you can't force a kid to be in a, you know, a friendship with this kid because they may not like them. And that's okay. But we're telling them it's not okay, that you have to like everybody. You can't do that. So all I'm saying that, you know, my vision of this school district is all inclusive. My vision of the school district is, you know, really not focusing on sexual identity, but education. Whatever that means, that's what I mean.
Thank you, Mrs. Flanagan. I just have a couple things, and ironically, it's like, Greg, you looked over my shoulder. I want to congratulate the 2023 class. It was great to be there in attendance. And then the softball, that was my other one. I was able to watch one of their games this past Saturday as they beat South Line, which I wasn't super happy about, but they went on to beat Mercy, which was undefeated. And I thought the coolest thing was at the end, when they won, they ended with like they all out on top of each other, but then they got off each other and like, all right, let's do a chant, and then they chose family. And I thought that was like, that's spot on for Heartland. And they ended with a family chant, and they ran off with their trophy, which is awesome. But they play tomorrow night at 6:30 at Wayne State. And I couldn't be more proud of them. I think they represent Heartland well. So ends my report. Item 2A, payment of invoices.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer, approves the financial report as of May 31st, 2023, and the payment of invoices totaling $2,107,379.01, and payroll obligations totaling $4,309,900 $383,381.79. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Claylock. Any discussion? Hearing none?
Yeah, I'd like to just say a big thank you to Rachel, who whenever she's asked a question, she always provides a very quick and timely answer. And thank you for that. Also, in the payment of invoices, one thing I was really looking for was the total cost of what our April FERPA investigation cost. Just in legal fees, it was $20,000. Above and beyond that, we get into employee costs. And we're probably looking at somewhere around 29,000, and that's an estimate, but somewhere around there. So before we get emotional and do these things that cost the district money, if we're so concerned about funding and we're so concerned about money and being sued and what have you, we need to be a little less reactive and a little bit more proactive to the truth. So that's all I wanted to say.
Any other discussion?
I just want to say one thing. So I remember when we were doing the recount for Greg and Michelle, because it was a tie. Everybody was all up in arms about, $10,000 being out of the school budget. It was a really big deal. And some hateful things were said. But in this case, with the Gogolewski investigation, that was prompted by some parents that, I'm not quite sure what the intention was, but they prompted this, and it cost us $30,000. So that's a lot of money for something that resulted in nothing. So that was disappointing. So like Glenn said, next time we should be a little more choosy with what we're doing before we spend $30,000 on something like that.
Yeah, that was purely political too. So
During any other discussion? Mr. Gogolewski? I'm gonna.
no, I
I'm
didn't.
gonna.
I did not cost you that money. No, I didn't.
Mr. Gogolewski, I'm gonna have to do that. Not entertain the audience. I'm sorry, Mrs. Fry, Mrs. Fry. Folks in the audience, if we can't conduct business, if we can't conduct school business, we won't be able to continue this meeting. So I'm gonna ask that you please refrain from speaking out, please. Mr. Gogolewski?
I'm done.
Pardon?
I'm
No,
done.
we're voting.
Oh, and we're voting on,
We're voting on item 2A, payment of invoices.
yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yeah.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blanfield.
Yes.
I myself will yes, that motion carries. Item 2B, call for July organizational meeting.
I move that the Board of Education pursuant to board policy set the July organizational meeting for July 17th, 2023 as discussed. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Blaylock. Any discussion?
The time of that meeting,
The time of that meeting would be, yeah, it should say it on there. We could add that, it would be 6:30. That's good. Is that correct? Are we all good with that? Okay. Mr. Gogolewski,
yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blanfield.
Yes.
Myself, will yes.
I just have a question. Is the public invited to that one? Or is that a closed?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
regular. That motion carries. Item 2C, 2023-24 parent student handbook.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of personnel and student services, approves the secondary, intermediate, and elementary parent student handbook changes for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. We did get this at the last meeting, so hopefully everybody will take a look at it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Yeah, there are a few items in here that are still fairly vague to me. When you take a look at, as an example, students' rules and regulations for FIS, page 9. We have a little red item here that says rule number 3, striking, attempting to strike, threatening to strike, or becoming physically aggressive towards another teacher or school employee or volunteer. And that is not the one I wanted to read. It is the one right below it, page 9. Use of profanity, obscenity, and or inappropriate language or comments. That's, in my mind, a can of worms. When we say inappropriate language or comments, and this kind of goes back to the situation of the students who call the student by their given name, is harassment, profanity, obscenity, is that going to include those types of items? Are we going to talk about inappropriate language or comments in those terms? And I'm asking that. I'm just sharing that that's a concern.
I personally don't have the answer. Mr. Hughes does. He knows the Farms Navigated handbook, but I would have to imagine that handbook encompasses something about bullying. Every handbook does. It's just it wasn't one of the updates. I personally am okay with the way it's worded. I mean, I wouldn't want profanity, obscenity, or any appropriate language or comments.
No, neither would I. I guess what I'm saying is that just it's a little bit more open to interpretation, inappropriate language or comments. Wow, that could be just about anything. Does that mean anything that's offensive to anyone is inappropriate?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Again, I'm not an expert on the Farms Intermediate handbook, but the way I see this is this allows our administrative team, or our teachers for that matter, to the student does something in some manner that they can speak to them about that behavior. I mean, it doesn't list that.
Could we ask Mr. Hughes or Mr. Van Epps to?
If they want to speak to this, Mr. Hughes and Van Epps, I mean, it doesn't say no. Certain consequences are mandatory every time. I think the interpretation is to try to curb this behavior based on this.
We would be happy to interject our thoughts if you would like us to.
Please.
Scott, would you interject your thoughts in regards to your conversation with the farm staff, please?
Yeah, is that working? Would that move in? Nice. So annually, we ask our building principals for input about the handbooks and other staff, student nutrition. Things change annually. We experience sometimes new behaviors or difficult behaviors that one we didn't really have something on point for, where we try to expand the verbiage, to cover something. Even without things like what we're proposing to add, it's up for interpretation and discernment by your school administrators and teachers. So, to the point we're making about these things, again, it was in an effort to say, for example, physically aggressive was being added to the current language of striking, attempting to strike, threatening to strike, to say we've had some behaviors that have been perhaps not there, but they're this, becoming physically aggressive, that would warrant our response and appropriate consequences. So, hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so I guess for me, I read some of these things that are in here. And I do think that we need some clarification and definitions. Because once these changes are made, it's gonna be difficult to go back, and I'm tying this to this new director of student services job description, which is defined, got some definition in there on what they're gonna be looking for. And I feel like if we are not careful with how we set this, the handbook policies, that we're gonna be creating situations where there's gonna be more kids in trouble that need to be, that should be in trouble, you know, for little things. That's what I want to avoid. So I understand the physical stuff, absolutely, bullying, absolutely, but just the soft stuff, like comments, right? Like, what's a comment? So is the director of student services gonna say, well, that comment goes against what, you know what I mean? That kid's gonna get in trouble for a comment. I just feel like we've really got to be mindful of what we're implementing here before we implement it. So I do feel like we just need to just understand what comments mean, you know, what defines comments. There's some gray areas for me, and they're open to interpretation. So have we looked at other school districts like that have handbooks, or are we just?
No to that question.
No, okay.
But I would say that, to the first part of the question, in the handbook, there's an appeal process. So if parents are not satisfied with an outcome for their child, they have that appeal process, and some utilize that. Appeals can come as far as to the assistant superintendent myself. So I'll say philosophically, the last thing we want to do is all of a sudden blow up our system with a whole lot of micro behaviors and things like that. It's not the intent. The intent is to really kind of help make sure we're covering the bases as best we can.
Okay, thank you. And like Mrs. Leach said, I mean, we're losing students because of some of these things, right? Like, we don't want to lose any more good students. So we just have to make sure whatever we do is responsible and clear, and not setting students up for failure in certain regards for saying something stupid. Every kid's gonna say something stupid. Even adults do. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Blanca. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yeah.
Mrs. Claylock?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondino?
I'm a no. More clarification.
I am also a yes, that motion carries 6-1. Item 2E, affiliate settlement and contract extension.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel and the Chief Finance Officer, approves the affiliate settlement agreement and contract extension as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Mr. Hughes, did you just want to speak to how we arrived at this item here for us today, if you would, please?
I can, but again, I'm going to defer to Mr. Van Ness, who works with our affiliate group. He oversees the affiliate group, so I think it's best that he address the issue with you.
Thank you.
All right, and I believe we did discuss this in personnel.
Correct.
So I don't know what has been shared out from personnel to the rest of the board, but the settlement agreement, which encompasses a contract extension, was in part due to not a grievance, but a unit clarification in the terms of MERC for 2 new positions, or a new position that we added, a human resources director. And then 2, we hired a payroll specialist. And while the payroll specialist has always been a position not represented by the unit, there was some argument for that to be included. And then the human resources director was an additional position in personnel, which was not designed to perform any affiliate work. Of course, there are elements of work that we do that might, are being viewed as such, but that wasn't the case. And 2, the HR director position was designed to evolve. For example, the one thing that's been accomplished now that we're past the 1-year hiring anniversary for this individual is the training for the Title IX coordinator, which is a position I hold currently, so co-coordinator. So we needed more representation to handle Title IX types of events. So that in part precipitated this activity.
Thank you, Mr. Van Ness. Yeah, you explained it well at the personnel meeting. I just wanted to make sure everybody else was aware of it, so I appreciate that.
One quick question to affiliate. Those are the positions that are support personnel.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Affiliates are support personnel, secretarial 1 and 2, para educators, working in the classroom and special education programming, lunch recess folks. And there are central office personnel, our accounting individual is represented in the department.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolowski?
I have to recuse myself from this vote. I am married to an employee that falls in this category.
Thank you, Mr. Gogolowski. Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Blaylock?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion carries 6-0. Item 2F, SSO recommendation.
I recommend that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, supports the administration pursuing employment contracts for school resource officers and school safety officers for the 2023-24 school year as presented. Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Blaylock. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk on this. I know Mrs. Blaylock, if you wanted to speak to this, or if you wanted to defer to Mr. Hughes about what this means, I think it's a great thing that is happening. Do you want to speak to Mrs. Blaylock, or are we?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things and then I'll defer to Mr. Hughes to kind of talk about the process that the team went through, the operations team went through. Obviously, within the safety group and here at the board table last month, we voted to move forward with the program and allow our operational leaders to develop a program and start the initial phases of contracting with the Livingston County Sheriff's Office. And then in addition to that, understanding that we needed a third party team involved as well. Mike Murphy was very transparent with us that he can offer a couple of two sheriff, but he couldn't really go beyond that for this year. So we knew we had to enlist a third party, and 2 different third party groups were interviewed, as well as several reference checks done. And so Chuck will talk about the kind of determination from there. But one thing I do want to know, and I was very transparent with Chuck in this, and while our ultimate goal needs to be to cover every building, in my humble opinion, and that's just me. I think that we also have to be sure we choose the right people. We shouldn't be hiring people to hit a number simply for simply to get someone at the door. I think that person has to be the right individual. They have to be willing to make those relationships with children. They have to be willing to have those relationships with our administrators and our teachers and our building and our staff. You know, they have to be the right person, and I don't want to hire someone to check a box. I think we need to be very diligent in that, because this is a program, again, that could do really great things for this district, really great things for this district. But if not done right, it could go south very quickly. So those are my 2 cents in that, and I'll let Chuck kind of review how his team went through it. And just a huge thank you to the team. I know several people reached out for references. Michelle called some districts. Others were calling the state and other districts, and so I just really appreciate the teamwork that was done. I think that it was something that everyone was really on board and excited about, and so I appreciate my colleagues in that respect. Chuck, sorry, hand it over to you.
If you would like me to talk, I'd be.
Yes, I'd love for you to talk.
All right, yeah, so bottom line is, the summary there just talks about where we want to put our efforts to it. The recommendations really are around the idea that the sheriff office can offer potentially 2 individuals. The hopes is they can offer 2 individuals, they might only be able to find 1 that would take on this task. We don't know, so it's just a matter of getting with the sheriff office to, we have a basic contract with them that they've shared with us. We'll take a look at that and we'll move that forward with the hopes of garnering 2 resource officers, 1 at the high school, 1 at Fort Creek. We did look at 2 different security units to provide us with SSOs. So SROs, so everybody knows, school resource officer is a current police officer with the Livingston County Sheriff Department. Could be, I guess, in Brighton with the Brighton Police Department. That's an SRO. The school safety officer is a retired law enforcement individual who has the training, continues to be trained, and can carry a weapon on them. And they would be in our buildings carrying a weapon in the buildings that they're assigned to. So we interviewed 2 different groups. We decided that we would recommend to the board, Fortis Group out of Brighton. We like them. We talked about it at the Health and Safety Committee. We liked that group. So they're going to work on, once you give me the authority to start negotiating with them, what can they find, who can they find, and give us an opportunity to meet those individuals. So we decided they would fit in our district, knowing that because the contract will read that if we don't like one of them, all we have to do is say, like a third party, Megan's not working out, we'd like you to remove Megan and find somebody else. So we want to be able to have that ability to do that. We have some options out there, they're labeled there. Ultimately, the option of putting one in every building would be awesome. But again, as Megan said, we can't just go into this with this idea that we're going to put one in every building and not have really good quality people. We do have a slight twist since we met in our committee. The twist being that Mike Capro will no longer be with us. He has turned in his resignation. So Mike was going to be our safety officer, our safety, making sure he's overseeing all this. I've taken that position or that job task and added it to the Director of Student Services position to oversee, making sure that we're pulling the groups together, our liaison with the County Emergency Management Unit, and all the things that Mike has been doing for us, making sure that we have our drills and we record our drills and we send our drill information in. So that's going to be added to that position. That this person could take care of for us. And then we would look at Fortis to provide somebody for this building. Because this is the one building that our company that we hired to assess our safety procedures in our district said this building really needed somebody. That's why we were going to bring our most seasoned, knowledgeable person over here. But since Mike's not going to be with us, we'll have to get somebody for this building. So when we're going into this, you know, we're going to go in with it, trying to get at least 3 individuals from Fortis, well, 4 now with this building. This building, I think, has to be a priority. It just does, because this is the one building that we need to take care of. Then I think there is, you know, the Farms Lakes campus, then there's the Creekside, potential Creekside Village campus, and then you've got Round that sits out there by themselves that you got to look at that. So we have to look at it, and I know that others have different opinions. That's why there's 3 options there. But as we're starting to talk with them to build a contract, we'll come back to the board and share, you know, what we're finding and what direction we should go. Because they might say, we can't get 5 people, we can't get 3 people, we can get 2 people. What do you want us to do? So I don't know what that's going to look like, but we're gonna, with your authority, you're giving us an opportunity to start that conversation. So I hope that all makes sense.
It does, and I think it shows the importance to getting good people, and also hopefully our fellow board members on board for this, because if we vote on this, then you can start making phone calls tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes, and I want to point this out, and I really appreciated Ms. Laybach pointing this out in our committee meeting. With more police officers on our campuses, with more security on our campuses, there potentially will be more reports that are made through law enforcement. Those reports, currently we do reports with law enforcement. We do lots of reports to record events occurring on our campuses. The key is that they're reports and reports only. And I shared this with our Health and Safety Committee. When you get one of these reports and you look in the crime, up in the corner, it says crime incident. There's a number usually assigned there. That number, if it's a 99, is just a report. It's a report so that the legal system can at least, if ever need be, track that, but it doesn't mean it's a crime. It's simply an intent. And basically, Sheriff Murphy, we met last week. We talked about this again, second time I've talked to Sheriff Murphy about this. He said, we'll do these reports all the time. Even if you don't want us to do these reports, if we're present and something's occurring, we're gonna do the report because we gotta cover ourselves too, now that we're in the schools and now that we're present. So the caution that we're gonna have to give parents is, you might get a knock at the door. You might get a phone call from a police officer because they're just documenting their activities on our campuses. So whether we like it or not, we'll see more of these reports generated because we have a police presence. That's just what it is. So we'll try to write something up before school starts that says, parents, sit down with your kids and let them know that the police will do these reports because that's what they do. And we're not here to tell the police not to do them. We're here to cooperate with them. So I hope that makes sense. But we'll figure out a way to get that message out.
I do appreciate that, Mr. Hughes, because I know in the safety committee that the deputy echoed those same points where that's his job. If he's going to talk to a student for one thing or another, he has to report it. He's recording it. And it doesn't mean it's criminal intent or nature, but it's the fact of the matter, that's his job. So I think that's great that we can, as we go forward in the fall, perhaps in that August letter, just some type of a reminder again, like you mentioned.
I have a comment too. You know, with the Fortis group, they provided references, and one of the reference was the director of security for Oxford schools. This man took on Oxford schools after the shooting. He talked to me for almost 3 hours, and basically what he was saying is that, you know, he has a lot of help from a lot of, you know, like federal agencies. A lot of people are all up in his business, and you know, they've gone through three superintendents because the pressure is so great at Oxford. So they've had a lot of trial and error, a lot of lessons learned that he provided, which is great. And he, as being a reference for Fortis, said that Fortis is the gold standard. So we're choosing to vote on a group that the Oxford director of security called the gold standard. And I feel like that there's nothing more to say about it. These guys are top notch. And they're going to, you know, like Chuck said, we have the ability to interview. But, you know, several of them, you know, they're all retired. One of the things that this Jim Bernier pointed out is the reason that they're so good is because of the training. There's a lot of people that, you know, go into security and they get a little bit of tabletop training. These guys are retired officers and they still have to have training. So, you know, and the good news is that like the SROs, they still have to like show up in court. They still have to do certain calls. So they'll have to leave for a little bit, which, you know, is what happened in Oxford is that individual left. Just so happened during the time of the shooting. But the SSOs reported they don't leave, and they make sure that they bring in somebody to, you know, like if somebody was taking time off, they'll bring somebody in that's familiar and, you know, and they cover for the individual that's taking vacation. So I feel I have very high expectations of them, and I think they're going to fulfill that. So rest assured, they'll protect your kids.
And I also had the privilege of speaking with one of the owners of the operations director, and I was amazed at how professional they were. And they were, after telling them about the district and how many schools we actually have, they were able to tell me with assurance, if they have enough lead time, they definitely can staff whatever we need. And I believe that that's going to be very possible, especially with us moving forward with this today, that they're going to have enough lead time, get the right people. They are all retired police or military individuals, and they all live in the community as well. And one of the things that they were really excited about was that most of their staff lives in Heartland or in the Heartland area. And they were almost giddy about having the chance to work with Harlan. So I think we're gonna be in good shape if we want to go with option 3, which we have listed here for Farms, Creekside, Lakes, Round and Village. And that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I guess I just also wanted to weigh in, member of the safety committee. I think, there's a lot of effort from everyone, so it was good to see the, I'll say the fruits of the labor coming to the table here today. Personally, I would advocate for option 3. I would also, echo what Mr. Gokaleski said. The company talked about having no issues getting 8 SSO, so I would like to see us move forward with a plan that would have someone in every building. So I hope we can make that happen, and I guess it's kind of a point of clarification. I understand this resolution gives Mr. Hughes the authority to engage the company. I guess what I don't know if I'm hearing is a number of SSOs. Because if we have Mr. Capra potentially being replaced, that adds from 3 to possibly 4 based on options 1 and 2. And then if you go to option 3, it's now we're looking at potentially 6. So is the request to Fortis or up to 6? Is that the plan, Mr. Hughes? If I may ask.
Yeah, I think the options are there for you all to discuss as a board and tell me which direction you want me to go, right? So I will do my best to go whatever direction you tell me to go, knowing that if I can't get enough quality officers, we're not gonna just put a body in the building. I just need you to know that.
Absolutely.
I don't feel comfortable with that.
Absolutely. I think we all agree on that.
Okay. Hearing no more discussion, Mr. Gokaleski. Oh, sorry.
I just have a concern. And maybe this is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to say, but how do we feel about this financially? To take that big of a leap in the first year, like if we were to go with option 3, how confident do we feel that we can do that without impacting too many other things in a big way? Maybe those are conversations you guys have had in the committees, but.
Yeah, I think at year 3, so Rachel does a really good job, and not all school districts do this, but she models things out for 3 years. And a lot of, what we get from a budget standpoint is modeled out for 3 years. I think at year 3 is when it gets to the utilization of a fund balance that's right on the cusp of where we would like to be. The way, and Rachel, please chime in if I misspeak on your current process, but the way she's currently budgeted is going with an estimated budget that's somewhere in between what's been proposed via the House and the Senate. And that does not include any dollars that we would expect from a one-time grant standpoint. We do know that the original proposal for the state budget, surprisingly enough, did include some of that. We just don't know what it looks like yet. And so we'd be hopeful that we would be able to take advantage of some of that in addition to that. I will say at year 3, which I think, we're looking into a 3-year contract. It seems to be the cheapest route, when you obviously sustain a program for 3 years. We will have to take a look at what that looks like from adding longevity cost to the budget. If things do not continue to trend in the direction in which it's trended from a reimbursement standpoint, that's when it gets a little bit iffy as year 3. Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, please.
No, you did a good job. That's the key is that, right now there's a lot of money built in the current state budget for safety initiatives. It looks like that's the direction the state is going for the next budget cycle, but like any type of state funding is guaranteed for 1 year. So it's going to impact the long-term programs and only guaranteed 1-year funding. So that's just something just to keep in mind as you think about the process.
Thank you.
I have one more comment. So I've been talking to somebody that works in the Lansing school district, and she was saying the same thing, that there are grumblings of, more grants for safety that are going to be coming out. She's going to alert me when they come through so that I can pass along to I think it's Mr. Minsberry, are you the one that submits for the grants?
That could be.
Oh, you could be, okay, so yeah, so I'm keeping an eye out for that too. So even if we do have the funding, the grant would be good, right? Yeah,
Mr. Gogleski?
Absolutely, yes, for option 3.
Okay, I don't think. But right now, we're just voting on the recommended action item, like I don't think we're choosing an option right now.
Okay,
Okay.
but I want to make it known that that's
Okay, thank you.
what I'm
Mrs. Shaw,
proposing.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh. Mr. Keller,
Yes, option 3.
Mrs. Blondeel,
absolutely.
myself, yes, that motion carries. Item 2G, new and revised policies.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, adopts revised policy 7540.03, student technology acceptable use and safety as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Claybaugh. Discussion,
I'm actually okay with this.
okay, hearing none, Mr. Gogleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel,
Yes,
and yes, that motion carries.
I think Mr. Usher's write-up was really good.
Yes.
Yes, I know. 'cause
Yes,
we-
thank you, Scott. That was much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, because I know these are back again. Mr. Usher is here, I believe.
That turned into a yes vote.
Yeah.
No, very good.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, adopts the revised policy 7540.04, staff technology acceptable use and safety as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Claybaugh. Discussion.
I guess for me, still having some heartburn over the usage of the term inflammatory comments. It's, I guess not clear who the arbiter of that is, and so therefore I'm still uncomfortable with that language.
Right? Any other comments?
Social media.
Social media is a great thing, yeah. Hearing none, Mr. Gogleski,
No.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
No.
Mrs. Blondeel.
I'm gonna know until we get some clarification.
I'm myself, I'm a yes, and it's just a note again for the public's understanding of it. Like Mr. Usher makes himself readily available, so I would encourage like our board members, if they want clarification of certain terminology, reach out to him. And hopefully he can provide it for you.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, adopts revised policy 8305 and information security as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. So again, this one item's back. This was tabled last item, so I hope our fellow board members had an opportunity to get any questions answered.
I have a recommendation, because this is, you know, our students' privacy and their information, you know, is very valuable to a lot of people. A lot of people want our students' information, God knows what they do with it, but we have to protect our children, and I feel that I recommend that we add to the policy that we ensure that all current suppliers have a signed control contract on file, and that we review it annually. So if anyone changes personnel, that the new person that steps into the role at our supplier or you know, the company that we're going to be, you know, having a contract with, that those individuals understand that our children's information is protected. So I'd like to add to it.
Because Mr. Van Apps, would this information generally fall under the realm of your scope of like So like student data, when that, Mr. Usher, is it possible I could get clarification if you could come up, please? So Mrs. Blondin suggested adding some verbiage about how when this data does go out, that it's secure. Can you somehow speak to that matter?
So every single organization that we do business with, we do have they post their privacy policy on their website. So those are the privacy policies that we're going off of, right? That we are making sure that they have in place, and it's company-wide. And the expectation is that all of their company employees are abiding by that company's policy of privacy. And so that's what we go off of. There are some of the companies that we do business with, we do have a written signed contract with. And that's a contract between us, the school district. Usually it's myself or Rachel or Chuck that signs those. And then it's their salesperson that's signing that contract on behalf of their company.
Just out of curiosity, in terms of using, it's almost like we're using their terms and conditions. Is this something that we would want to have on our terms and tell them, this is what we want or don't want from you? We don't want you selling this information. We don't want you giving it to a third party, period.
So that's a great question, Mr. Gorgleski, and the answer to that is, in all cases, we make sure that that is part of their privacy policy. So
do we have a legal person review their policies that are posted? Because I know that they can be, mind-numbingly long, or, have verbiage in there that, maybe some people don't really recognize. So do we just go by trust factor, or do we have somebody actually review the contract that they post?
there are some contracts that we have had reviewed in the past, as we, in my 22 years at Heartland that we have, but the vast majority of the things that we are doing now we're just going off of their typical privacy policies that are listed and available and readily available on their websites.
So are you opposed to creating our own document that tells them that they're not allowed to disseminate, sell, share any private data? Are we against that? I mean, because it just makes me uncomfortable. We all know that data is being sold in my.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that in any way, shape, or form. I'm not sure that it would necessarily change anything on their part, other than if they do, then we just stop doing business with them. We have a legal recourse anyway, because
boundaries, right?
Because their privacy policy indicates that they're not allowed to do that. And if they do violate that, then we have a legal recourse against them. If we have a signed document that says you aren't allowed to do this, we have a contract or something we're signing and you're signing in response to that, sure, we could certainly do that.
But how do we verify that they're actually following their own policies? Is there some way to, I know it's difficult, I'm in business, I get it. But if we set a boundary for them and we say, listen, yes, your policy says that this is our policy, you have two policies protecting our students, right?
We sure could. We sure could. We could. Yeah.
Okay,
we would have to go through our legal representation, and they would have to draw something up, but that's certainly something that we could do. I don't know of any other school districts that do that, to be honest with you, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't do it.
But do you agree that our children's information is valuable to a lot of people, right? People are looking for this information so that they can do their own research and, find things like.
I think that bad actors are out there looking for anybody's information, absolutely.
Okay.
There's no question about that. It's been proven time and time again. I certainly think that we are doing what we need to do in order to protect our students. I know that my students attend this school district, and I would not want their data to be available to just anybody. I want to make sure it's protected, and I take that very seriously in my job and my role and responsibility. And I ensure that that is the case for all of our students, not just my own.
Yeah, this is not a you thing. I think it's just.
I understand, but
protection. I would like to see double protection. That's why I recommend.
I'm just making sure you understand, though, that I have a vested interest in this, not just as this is my job, but this is my job, but this is where my kids go to school too.
Right.
It's important to me.
Point, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Usher.
Ken, just to clarify as well, what I think I heard you say, Mr. Usher, is we've been doing, the business we do with these groups have it very clearly on their websites that say, this is their privacy policy, this is what we have to do. We don't have reason to believe in our time of doing business, and certainly not my time in the district, that I've ever had a conversation with Scott, that our data has been breached, or our data has been sent someplace it shouldn't be. And I think that we have that relationship with these vendors that have that on their policies, that what you would be asking us to do, Michelle, is to go spend again resources to try to get each of these companies that we do business with to sign another contract that they could say, help me, Mr. Usher, say, it's not worth it to do business with you because we have our policy there. Now, someone could say, well, if they're not willing to sign, don't do business with them. But some of these are really good entities that we work with, that we don't have a reason not to trust them, that we have their policy in place and it's there for everybody to see. And unless somebody gives us a reason not to trust them, and if that happens, then we go after them legally. So I think that's what I heard you say.
That's correct.
And it doesn't seem like, you know, we need to do this double thing. I think that it's worked very well, and certainly it's something that I don't know that we have to go that route. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's just not worth the time and effort.
I just think that in this day and age of data mining and what have you, I mean, I truly, and Mr. Hughes, I agree with you, trust but verify. I just think that maybe there might be something that we can do just to send them, whether it's a quick, almost informal type of email that you will abide by your policies and protect our data, correct? You know, just something, maybe not that simple, but just sending it to them, making sure that we're looking at your policy. We like what we see, and we want your assurance that you will follow this to the letter that it is.
Thank you, Mr. Gillespie.
Mr. Usher, how many companies are we talking about here? Very high.
Throwing out number 7, 8.
Okay.
That we've had long-term relationships and contracts with, as other school entities have as well. These are people that educational institutions do business with all the time. So 7 or 8-ish.
Are there any instances you recall where we decided not to go with a particular vendor because of their privacy policy not being tight enough for our standards?
No, not that we have made that decision. Simply just reviewing the policies that for all of the contracts that we've had, or all of the companies that we've used and contracted with in the past they looked clean, they looked appropriate, they looked like they did the things that we wanted them to do, or said the things that we wanted them to say, in order to ensure that the data that they are housing for us is secure and safe.
Thank you, Mr. Usher. Any other comments? Okay, here we know the comments, Mr. Gillespie.
Are we voting now?
We're voting.
Okay. I'm gonna say no.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybaugh,
I'm a yes, and if I recommend that we bring it back, if we want to add additional provisions.
Mr. Keller.
Yeah, I would agree actually with Megan. I'd like to see some minimum privacy requirements be incorporated. So for today, I'm a no.
Mrs. Blondie.
Yeah, I want to protect the students, and I know that, you said you have, but I'm gonna say no right now. Can we discuss this further? Thank you very much.
I have a yes. That motion carries 4-3.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, adopts revised policy 8400 school safety as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw. Vote by Mrs. Coleman. Discussion. This is another one that we brought back.
Yeah, I just have a recommendation, in the first paragraph, that it says the assistant superintendent of personnel and student services or a designee shall ensure continued implementation. What's the designee? Because we're responsible for safety, so like, I would want to know who that designee is, so that's pretty open-ended.
That could be me if something were to happen to Scott, right? So the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Student Services is responsible for overseeing this particular issue. But let's say something happens and he's gone for 2 weeks and we've got to address it, then it might fall to me as a designee. Normally it says superintendent or designee, and then I as a superintendent can decide and delegate that out. But it doesn't usually, when you say designee, we have somebody here, but if something happens, it's whoever we designate to do so. So I don't know that you could say, in this case, if, just saying in this case, if the board adjusts 1410 and we pursue the hiring of a school, oh gosh, director of student services, we could add that there, and now we have 2 people. So if something happens to one, the other person picks it up. So that's a possibility, because some of these things are going to be on that job description if I move in that direction. For instance, the Michigan State Police reporting, we've been very forthright with you as a board that we have recognized we haven't been as diligent in reporting that as we shared with you, as I shared with you in a number of emails related to some individuals asking questions about the district. We said, hey, that's an issue we haven't been really good at. And so this person would be hired to take over this. So still have the assistant superintendent of personnel, but also director of student services, so that they can make sure that we're following through with this process. I had a long conversation today with my administrative team at Ed Staff about this policy in particular, and where we've lapsed and where we haven't been real proficient, and how we have to do better next year, and we have a plan to do so. So, and I think I shared all that with you all in regards to some other things that you're going to address. So we think that we could add that if you want, Michelle, but designee just leaves it open so that what if we don't have somebody there to do the work?
Okay. Thanks, I didn't answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Right now, Mr. Godleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Graylock,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondie.
Yes.
I am also a yes, that motion carries.
I move that the Board of I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Greg Keller, adopts revised policy 0152 officers as presented.
Motion by Ms. Shaw. Support by Mr. Keller. Discussion, Mr. Keller, did you want to lead the discussion on this?
So yeah, we talked about this a little bit last meeting. You know, there was some outcry from community members, just in general, with the election process that we have and how we determine our officers. The president, I think, for example, does carry some additional responsibilities as a member of the board, and in my opinion, it should be filled by somebody that was elected by the members of the community where possible. The revised language that I've proposed maximizes the voice of the community. Since we have had this out now for a month, I'm not aware of any negative feedback against the proposed change. And so again, I urge my colleagues to vote yes.
Any other discussion?
I'll just say that I was not an elected member when I took on my board role. And sure as heck didn't do any less work than anyone else on the board, so.
It's not intended to be a reflection of how much work one does or doesn't do. I think that's individual. But again, when, for example, I'm not picking on Mr. Costa, but as president, he does have additional authority to set agendas and things like that, that the rest of the board doesn't have. And if it wasn't important, then why have officer elections at all, I guess? So in my opinion, we need to have the most meaningful process that incorporates the will of the people as much as possible, wherever possible, and in my mind, this does that.
I can understand your point on the president. Mr. Costa does have a different role.
Any other discussion?
I mean, I agree with Mr. Keller that, you know, if it's the voice of the people that elected people, I mean, it's not about workload. It's more representing the community. The community elects people. And the board appoints people. So I guess, you know, I support what Mr. Keller is trying to do, which is give the community a voice in their elected officials.
And it's not necessarily about work or anything like that. It's the fact that if someone takes a position that wasn't elected, it does look to some people, to the public, a little suspect. And that's not to imply that there's anything wrong, and I am not saying that. It just looks as if you know, questions can be asked and it doesn't provide a real warm fuzzy when things like that happen. So
I just personally want to say that the fact of the matter is we've had to appoint a couple people because some of our board members have resigned at inopportune times, and we had to choose people. And I feel it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense that the people that we as a board choose wouldn't have the same possible duties as other board members. It just seems like that'd be one thing. Like I know Mrs. Glayback made a point, like she was appointed treasurer because she absolutely, we feel, was the best fit for that, whether she was voted there or appointed. So I'm struggling with this one. That's it.
well, the board can still appoint somebody if somebody isn't available. It's just that all we're doing is giving priority to those elected versus assigned. And I'm not against assigning duties to someone that wasn't elected. I'm not against that. I just think that we should prioritize it. That's all.
Right. Any other discussion? Mr. Gobleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw,
No.
Mrs. Coleman,
No.
Mrs. Claybaugh.
No.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
Myself, for the points I mentioned, I am a no.
This is why people should get voted in. You're talking, quiet. Oh, really? It didn't work for you guys?
Again, I'm just gonna have to ask that we just have to get through the agenda, folks. There's another item on the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Glenn Gobleski, adopts revised policy 8805 flags as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. Mr. Gobleski, did you want to speak? I know you spoke earlier, but if you want to just kind of reiterate some of your facts.
Yeah, I spoke here earlier and I don't think I could be more succinct than I was then. I just feel that if we are truly pushing for inclusivity, we either include everyone or we don't have anything for one individual group. And I believe too, and I mentioned this earlier, I didn't know when it may come up, but wasn't there going to be a presentation of other alternative or no?
If you're talking about the alternative safe space sticker, I don't have a presentation. It was a student created alternative. That will be an option. And so I wasn't going to present anything or need to officially, we're not voting on it. It was just going to be an alternative option for a sticker.
A couple of things I would like to know, and we received several emails and I found that emails and discussion, even one email in particular from an educator, rather impactful. Because they had indicated we need resources, and so resources to me are items for people, all people, and really if you're vulnerable, non-vulnerable, Obviously understanding that the vulnerable populations have probably different resource needs. But I want to truly understand what those resources are. Because to me, that's something tangible that we can do for our students. And whether that's, I mean, this goes for anything. It goes from kids that don't have food at home to kids that, you know, have unstable parents and so on and so forth. And so that's where my mind goes with this. I'll be very transparent with the public, and I have no problem in doing so. I think that there is a fine line with this, and unfortunately, I think that it's been twisted a bit. And for those of you that aren't aware, there's been school districts surrounding our district and actually in other states in Canada that have, you know, teachers thought they were doing a good thing by supporting their students, and unfortunately, there was propaganda on a QR code that none of us would want our students to see, none of us. And that's a true worry, that's a true concern, is that our kids are constantly on their phones, our kids are constantly using QR codes and doing this and doing that. And what I saw on that website, I don't care if my kid was 18 and about to graduate, that's not something that is for their consumption without either me directing that conversation or doing something beyond that. I truly feel that all students need to matter in our district. And, you know, I was reflecting on when things weren't an issue, when we didn't talk about politics, and we didn't talk about religion, when we didn't talk about, back then it was finances, we didn't talk about a lot of these things, yet everyone still loved their neighbor for who they were. And it's really disappointing that now it's like you are one bucket or you're another, and I'm choosing not to love you as my neighbor. And that really bothers me, because I think no matter what walk of life, no matter what you do in your four walls, no matter what you need from me, you're gonna get from me. You could take my last penny. And I think we've lost touch of that. We lost touch of being compassionate people who truly care about everyone, who care about the kid who, you know, is insecure because they're homosexual. We care about the kid who doesn't have a stable home life because, you know, mom and dad are drug addicts. We care about the kid who doesn't have food. We care about the kid who, you know, maybe is just going through a rough time and has all the resources at home. And that really, I really am having a hard time understanding where our resources for all of our students are going and what those resources look like. And I did reply to that individual and said, let's chat about what true resources look like, and what we can do as a school district to be facilitating and advocating, not only at the local level, but for resources for other districts, for resources throughout the country, and how to support kids differently. You know, I think that I applaud the students that designed this new sticker. I think that that's fantastic that our students have come together and could do something like this and could represent, you know, their classmates and represent a lot of things. And I find that we as adults are making decisions that, quite frankly, some of our students are so capable of making. And it's wonderful to see them to come together, and it'd be great if that sticker, you know, is used at the elementary level, is used at the middle school level, and it's a constant for all kids to see. If I'm in kindergarten, I see it, and if I'm in senior in high school, I see it. And so I think that I applaud those students for doing that, and I applaud those students for coming together and trying to facilitate something that should have a positive notion within our district. There are a couple of things about the policy that I would like to know or request changes in. And in referencing policy 3210, which is staff ethics policy, I think we need to align the verbiage with the staff ethics policy, so we're not kind of going back and forth. And my request would be that we also note that A through H have already been defined as exceptions. And for the public, those are exceptions that are colleges, universities, those types of things, and then approved documents. that be integrated in there as well. And so I would note that A through H, I request that A through H be an exception, and then it depicting any social policy, religious and or political causes. Just a minor change in verbiage.
So depicting any social policy and or political causes.
Religious and or political causes, because in 3210, we also note the religious purposes as well. Sorry for my long-winded answer on that.
So I have a question. Can I ask you a question? Because this board is going to make potentially a policy change that you're gonna require me, the superintendent, to enforce. Right? So it's easy to make the policy change, but then you're gonna require the superintendent to take the policy that potentially is continuing, it's not gonna necessarily be something that is gonna be well received potentially. I'm just saying. So when you change the verbiage, any media, including signs, posters, flags, and or others as defined in A and B, stickers, etc., depicting any social policy and or religious and or political causes unrelated to the daily curriculum. My question to you, Ms. Laybach, is where does the current rainbow, as you guys call it, rainbow say sticker land in regards to this change in policy? What would you be expecting from me, the superintendent?
I think that it would be lovely if we could replace it with the one that was designed with the students, by the students.
So I'm just kidding, I'm sorry, are you gonna?
But I was just gonna say, how do you enforce no crosses for Christians? How do you enforce that? It's the same concept. I mean, it's written in policy that a teacher, a Christian teacher, can't have a cross. How do you enforce that? It's the same thing. Agree or no?
I agree that it's a really, you know, this is a great area. How I enforce the no crosses is that I fall back to separation of church and state. That may not be popular, I get it, but I fall back to that idea that we have a separation of church and state. Again, may not be popular, but that's where I fall back to. In regards to this particular situation, I fall back to, I support our educators supporting every student. That's where I stand, and I always have. So this change of this policy changes the perspective of me, the superintendent, in trying to enforce a policy that would require me now to go into our buildings, any place there might be a, say, space sticker that happens to be other than the one that has the generic eagle on it, and say that's got to come down. That will cause its own issues. I'm just saying that's the reality. And I personally don't have a problem currently with the way things are, knowing that every child is still loved and cared for regardless.
So.
Well, no, I mean, because again, when the students came in with the T for traditional safe space and they were told, no, they can't put the sticker up, but the sticker that's up doesn't represent them. When everybody keeps saying they want to support all students, it doesn't make sense. If you're supporting all students, you're going to support all students the same way. We're in 5 months right now. We're in 5 months right now. The straight students don't have a straight month. They don't have this representation. So when we're saying vulnerable and, you know, like, how do you, like, all kids are vulnerable.
I would say our straight students have every month.
Re-election, right there.
I struggle with, and one of our speakers here made a point.
Wow.
They said social cause. So social causes is vague. It is. I mean, they made a valid point. I mean,
No.
It's gonna promote, or like, poverty. I mean, I understand it's an extreme difference to what we're going for, because I hear we're focusing on rainbows. I get it, that's where this is. And I mentioned at the last meeting. I for one am not gonna sit up here and create and support some policy where we become the sticker police, because really, it is vague. It absolutely is vague. One of the people who called the public said, where does it stop? And
There's a difference between charity
Well,
and going for a social cause and momentum to have people think and act a certain way.
I did write something out that I was just gonna read word for word. So I'm gonna do it. And then, and again, I'm one vote, one of 7. But I went and I found just, I found some thoughts online and I put them in my words, but I'm just gonna read them. It says, I personally don't feel that I can stand up here as a bystander and allow changes to happen that I feel are important to respect the inherent dignity of every human being by creating an environment that is a safe and welcoming place for everyone to feel represented and welcome. I go on to say, our staff, student, and community are watching right now as they're called upon the board members to show that we value school culture that supports diverse, equitable, and inclusive educational community. Like, we have a diverse community, whether we want to sit here and like it or not. There are diversities within our district. And I welcome them, quite frankly. And I think this policy, adding this, is the opposite. I think that is taking away from it. And that's the intent. That's the intent I'm getting for it. I'm personally not for it, and I won't be voting for it. I think it's a mistake.
Respect. Heartland Schools strives to be a safe and welcoming place for all students. We will not accept discrimination or harassment in any form. We will not direct or compel students to personally confirm that any person or group is superior or inferior. I don't know how much more inclusive you can make a statement than that. I don't understand. We have that right now. We either respect everyone or we respect no one. The fact that we're thinking, well, certain groups are not going to be respected or might be dead, then we got some big house cleaning to do. Holy cow. If you're telling me that a kid can't go into a classroom and know that he's protected, know that he's safe, knowing that the teacher will stick up for him and fight for him, we've got bigger issues than a sticker.
So. Where I haven't included that one with what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel respected, what makes you feel like you are protected is completely different than what Cindy would need or what Scott would need or what Dave would need.
That's why
It's completely.
Well, then we should have a million different stickers.
What about the 9 kids? I think it was 8 or 9 kids that went into the principal at the high school and said, we don't identify with that. What does that mean? They said LGBTQIA, and they said, okay, can we put our sticker out so that we feel, and they would not do it. That's not inclusive. That is choosing. That's choosing someone that's more important than these kids. These kids are good kids. And they're worthy kids. They're worthy of protecting. They're worthy of they felt like they needed to do. Realize how brave they needed to be to do that? Do you understand that for them to walk into the teacher and with the stick and say, I don't feel represented, can we put this up? And they were ignored and then they were told no. And yet we're talking about inclusivity. If you're inclusive, you're going to include those kids that actually took it upon themselves to say, I don't feel represented, but we're not acknowledging them. How does that work?
So is it a viable option then to leave the stickers as they are? If I believe there's a handful of classrooms that may still have them.
There's a handful.
And then add the new sticker, add the design, have it open to any teacher, let them put up that sticker as they.
That you're still creating a division,
But everybody's represented. Everybody's represented by the all sticker, that you guys are all behind the all sticker.
So the people that have a rainbow sticker, are they more friendly and capable of dealing with students that have concerns regarding LGBT?
Yes, I would believe.
If I can. Really?
I believe, and again, this is one of the mine. That Folks, I'm gonna have to ask you to, I know it's a very heated topic, but I believe the question is not here, so I'm gonna have to ask that the community hold their conversation. So again, my interpretation of what that sticker represents is those kids know that they can go into that classroom and just be themselves. They're not there for counsel. We have counselors, we have social workers. Those kids recognize that this is a place I can just go and I can be me. It's not that they can't be in any other rooms, but that's like a beacon of, hey, I'm okay. By the way, our LGBTQ students are 25-29% more likely to commit suicide. So the fact that we have a handful of stickers in this district,
That is,
I believe we have 5,
That's not true.
and we're gonna go, it is true. Absolutely. So we're gonna go down this road and we're gonna ban
they have 30% more
dozens.
psychological issues.
So
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I actually.
Yes, I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna say something that I said at the last meeting. These stickers are not for the kids.
Right.
You know what these stickers are for? It's for the adults in the room to say, look at me, I care, I care more. Oh, look at me, I am just a caring individual, I have moral superiority over you. That's exactly what it is.
I just have a question. I just wanna.
We not have Mr. Capper here. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. So without having to take a recess, if the community sitting in this room can't contain themselves, then we will just have to recess. And then we'll have to sit and we'll have to wait because we have to vote. Like we brought this before. So again, if the community is going to continue to speak out, we're just going to have to recess. And we won't get these other action items done. These will be tabled through the next meeting. So if that's the way we're going to go, that's what we can do. But I'm not going to battle the crowd. I understand your question.
I would like to make a comment, please.
Mr.
Appreciate that opportunity. So my biggest concern with this policy, the way it's written today is with the opportunity to have these stickers, I feel like we are telling the kids who are the most important part why we're all here is that certain kids matter more than other kids. And that's a terrible message to say. I understand that maybe something that makes someone feel safe, but that doesn't mean it makes another person feel safe. So we can't have this double standard of you matter more than the other person. I think we need to focus on educating our kids, eliminate distractions from the classroom. We can incorporate something that I thought we already did, right, with the 3 Rs. We have policies and procedures and, you know, we focus on everybody, yet we're going to allow certain groups or folks that need a sticker to feel safe. I just, it's mind-boggling to me that we wouldn't have already a wonderful staff that is already going to address and take care of every student. I just can't believe that we don't already have that. So I don't think we personally need a sticker to tell the community or the students that they can only come in here. Again, I think we need to be consistent. We've had other kids approach the district about they want this and we've decided that they can't have that. So we have to be consistent. We're in for a penny, in for a pound. So it's either all or none, in my opinion.
I'm sorry. This is my other discussion. I feel we're ready for a vote.
Yeah, one more thing. What about those kids that wanted their sticker up? I know I just want everybody to keep that in the front of your mind. That we're talking about kids feeling, you know, kids not, you know, being represented, and these kids wanted their own sticker up. They went there and they got ignored. And so I just don't get how this works.
Well, kids are each, some are more equal than others.
I feel that, I think Mr. Hughes mentioned that was a separation of church and state.
No, the separation of church and state is so that the state doesn't get involved with the church, but it's a T, it was a T safe space. It was a T.
Like a cross.
It was a T. So even if it was Christian, but again, the traditional value, you can laugh all you want. It's okay. I don't want to talk about sexualizing children.
Yeah, just keep the conversation up here. I
Well,
would encourage that.
sorry, you guys, I we're going.
I don't.
I would like to make a motion to amend the current policy based on my comments. Noting that A through H are exceptions.
A through H are exceptions, and then, but didn't you have other?
And then adding so that the verbiage match. It would be social policy, religious and or political causes. And that would include, in my mind, that includes, you know, items at the time we've had recently, it would be pro-life item, anything that's really falls in that realm.
Renee, are you getting this?
No.
So
Sorry.
religious, so you're just adding depicting any social and religious or political causes. Social policy. Are you pulling that verbiage from another?
Yes.
3210, what item is that? Item M, is that where you're getting that from? 3210, this is way back.
Item M, yes, part of that verbiage. And then, I just wanted to know, instead of just A and B, it being A through H. As exceptions.
I think those are our
In
exceptions.
my mind, it's contradicted that.
Oh, you want to say A through H down at the bottom. A to B, H, social policies and religious or political causes.
Yes.
Seems clear like we have a motion.
What I think I want to get away from, we got an email on, can I put a picture, picture of my family like that? Yes, absolutely. I just indicated social policy, religious and or political causes, religious is noted again in 3210. Which has the same.
So motion on the table to change the item that Mr. Glaybach, I'm sorry, Mr. Kokoleski has added, changing the letter B, where it says other than defined in A through B to A through H, and adding depicting any social policy and or religious or political causes, right?
Yes.
Motion by Mrs. Glaybach. Do we have to make a motion or can we just amend it? We just amended it, okay. All right, voted on the amended policy. Mr. Kokoleski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
No.
Mrs. Coleman.
No.
Mrs. Glaybach.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel.
Yes.
I'm a no, that motion carries.
Just so the audience hears me, I'm gonna need direction on what it is that you're expecting me to do to uphold this policy. And so if Megan, you want to sit down with me and let me know what that looks like, because I've got to be able to give the explanation to my staff and our community on what it is that this policy is directing me to do. And clearly that it was voted 4-3 by the board, and you're directing me to do X. So that's what I have to do, because that's my job, is to honor your policy decisions.
I do want a broader discussion, and perhaps it starts with the individual that I spoke with today or had communication with today. On what additional resources are needed from the district level. To impact change for vulnerable population.
Item 2H, revised policy 1410.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the chief financial officer, adopts revised policy 1410, administrative salary structure, and policy 1410-01, compensation and longevity schedule as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Glaybach. I know, Mr. Hughes, you spoke to this, but if you really want to explain this again, what is this position that it entails and what it would do? And then obviously we talked about policy.
There's a couple of factors playing into this position being created. One factor is the safety and security in the district. We're adding a number of officers. We've lost Capra, so I have to update this. I've got an update on my desk. I didn't update it for you where this position would take over those security oversight duties, as well as being our liaison with the county emergency manager, our MSP documentation that I've been, again, very clear with you that we haven't, in my investigation, brought to my attention by a gentleman in the community that we may not be as diligent in tracking these incidents. Yep, that's true. I'm just telling you, it's true. I admit it. We have a plan for addressing that. This helps us to do that. So all of those things that are there, then the next thing is the DOJ. The community knows that we have been under the microscope of the Department of Justice for 1.5 years now. They visited the district recently and said, we're visiting you just to let you know that once we have time to see your end of the year report, we're still going to come back regardless. And we're going to be back another year with you. And in this year's time, we need to see the district working towards addressing specifically racial issues in the community. We have a number of incidents that have occurred in our school system in regards to students using verbiage and whatnot that has been reported to the DOJ. They've interviewed, they have investigators. I sat in that meeting with Ms. Coleman. You were one of them. And I felt deflated that we worked so hard to address the needs of every child in the community. And yet the DOJ was still saying they are concerned about racial in particular. And we have to do a better job showing them and demonstrating to them that we've addressed and put resources into the racial issues. So regardless of how we feel about that, the fact is the DOJ is an important entity in the business that we do. They can make they have the ability to do the things that they do, and our attorneys are very clear that we will need to cooperate and continue to cooperate and try to create the environment we want all kids to be engaged in. So this captures all that. There's a lot there, and the problem is that I felt terrible because I, the superintendent, we worked really hard at this, and here we are sitting deflated because maybe we didn't give it enough. But then I think back about all the distractions and the more and more stuff put on our table, the more and more stuff put on our assistant superintendent's table, that we need some help here. We need to demonstrate that we're going to work on this, and this position would help us do that. So that's why I've asked you to do this change, and it is commensurate with the current principal salary schedule to get this work done. And it's a 1 year, see how it goes. We evaluate it at the end of the year. It's a 1 year position at this point in time, and we evaluate it at the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Is that, are we open for questions right now?
I think a discussion, sure.
Discussion. Is this a legal requirement? Or is this just a DOJ recommendation?
You're asking Mr. Hughes, correct?
Yes.
I would say that our attorneys highly encourage and support us working in collaboration with the DOJ, because otherwise we're sending a message that we're not in collaboration with the DOJ and expectations. So you can read into that how you want it. My recommendation is we do not follow the guidelines of the DOJ, period. Go ahead.
There was something that was given that I examined. You had a document that talked about some of the recommendations, and one of the recommendations was working with the Great Lakes Equity Center. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Well, I did a little digging on the Great Lakes Equity Center. And I will say this, for all of those speeches last year where people got up here and talked about CRT in the schools, the DOJ is now going to ensure that we're going to have CRT in the schools. And I'm telling you, take a look at the Great Lakes Equity Center website. They have a series of resources. And they have on one of their web pages, anti-racism resources. Now, get a load of this. For those who are white, non-disabled, Christian, non-LGBTQI, English only speaking, US born, and otherwise privileged, most of you are privileged. You probably didn't know that. This talks about going on to be not just against racism, but anti-racist. Do you know what anti-racist means? And by the way, in this guide, they recommend several resources by Ibram X. Kendi, who happens to be the author of Critical Race Theory. And do you know what anti-racist means? The only remedy, and this is his quote, it's on his webpage. The only remedy for racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. Think about that.
Yeah, I'll address that, Glenn, and I'll address it with this. As a school district, we continually talk about harmonizing every approach we ever take. So just because they say we would like you to at least reach out and get potential information from this organization or this resource, we still look at that information and we harmonize it to what is appropriate for our kids and our community. And to point to any individual resource and say, well, the district wants to use this resource or that resource, it doesn't really matter. We may talk with this company and we say, no, we like something different. But you know what? We have that opportunity to make sure that we harmonize whatever approach we have and take care of our kids and take care of the issue that is on the table.
So the Department of Justice is ensuring that we are discriminatory to, I guess, make up for past discrimination.
I don't agree with that.
This is unbelievable. The very fact that the DOJ, the Department of Justice, which by the way does not have the best track record right now, maintaining objectivity, is telling us that we need to hire somebody for 120 grand a year to oversee, as we've said in the job description. I think we have the job description listed here for it.
Page 46.
Page 46, yes. Oh, look at this. This is absolutely wonderful. Racial education and policy compliance, restorative practice, PD for staff and leadership, student focus groups, district climate and culture race-based surveys. Wow.
But can I ask what are you referencing the document that we have?
Yeah, it's on page 46.
Well, page 46 of the job description.
Yeah, the
Okay,
job
'cause I'm like,
description.
you're talking about our packet. Okay, so you're concerned about that this new position we're creating
Yeah,
is going to be in charge of restorative practice?
job description, recommendation to hire a director of student services.
Correct,
Job description.
correct. What concern do you have about their job description? You have a concern about them running restorative practice?
Racial education and policy compliance, restorative practice for staff leadership. State student focus groups at the middle school and high school level.
Okay.
District climate and culture race-based surveys.
Okay.
What about that one? Does that kind of sound some alarms here or no?
No, because I can share with you that if you had called me in advance and said, hey, Chuck, talk to me about this, You and I could have sat down and I could have explained to you that what that is specifically that our surveys of all students are not good enough. They want to see us to just survey our students of color and to get their perspective on their education here in Heartland, specifically students of color. The middle school and high school racial caucus, that's simply working with those students of color in our buildings to regularly check in on them and say, how are things going? How do you feel things are going? Is there anything that you need from us to make your experience in our schools a better experience for you and the opportunity to gain that education? Restorative practice is in the law in regards to how you deal with students regardless of race, color, creed, and how we get them back on task to be successful in school. Racial education and policy compliance goes back to all of our board policies on anti-harassment, anti-discrimination, anti-bullying, but leading that conversation at the building level with our staff to make sure we're all on the same page.
What were some of the other recommendations that the DOJ gave to you, Chuck?
This pretty much is in this document.
Mr. Hughes, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So with this specific job description, has that been sent to the DOJ for their approval in terms of it will satisfy whatever requirement that they say we're not meeting? Do we have that in writing from them?
Not yet. We're waiting on them to review our document that we ended the end of the year document with.
So would it make sense to wait to look at adding a position that essentially would be equivalent to 2.5 SSOs, which we just voiced concerns about financially, that we can sign up for additional security officers. And if we don't even know that this will meet their requirement, I have some concerns over approving that position.
And what is the metric for determining how unracist we are? What's the metric? Is it just when they feel a particular comfort level or what? When do we get away from this?
Well, I definitely don't work for the Department of Justice, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Hughes, so. My understanding of the Department of Justice is going to get back to us when they get back to us. It could be next month, it could be 3 months, it could be 5 months, it could be 6 months. And if the fact of the matter is we sit here and do nothing, I don't think they're going to appreciate the fact that we're doing anything about this situation that we have. So I for one feel that we do need to vote on it. I don't find anything disturbing in here as far as the job description.
So, Chris, how do we know that this will be the requirement that satisfies their need without getting their actual approval and right? I mean, that's.
The fact of the matter is,
It's doing something for the sake of doing something, but let's do the right thing, not just something.
well, I'm not speaking about the district, but Mr. Hughes and his team spent an entire year trying to lay out to the Department of Justice.
They came and said, this is what we were gonna do, and now we're still.
We said specifically, we need more.
Can I make a comment? So, yes, this is quite the conversation we're having. I'd like, as a school board member, before I vote on something like this, as I understand it, Mr. Plumford, and I believe Mr. Gregory, talked to many of their students in the high school and in the middle school, and they got good reports, right? They get positive feedback from the students they spoke to. I spoke to several parents who have, Black kids in the community, and they're happy with it. They don't have any problem at all. They don't want their kids seen as victims. Like this is their input, and I'm sure at some point they're gonna come out and say that, but they don't want their kids to feel like they're victimized. Now, I would like a little more detail on what we are being asked to do, because it feels like it's like an open-ended thing, like you have to do better, it's gotta be more broad. But if we don't know what our target is, how are we developing this position? And we won't know. You said 3 months from now, it could be totally off target. Like we want to work with them. We want to make sure we supply them with what they're looking for, but it doesn't feel like we know what they're looking for, or that this bar is set by what, can I have some incidents records so that I understand what we're talking about? Because that would be nice, because I have no idea what we're talking about, these incidents. I know that recently, there's been talk of, this swastika on a tree, but I don't know why that woman came here, because she lives in Oakland County and the Oakland County sheriffs were investigating, but somehow she came here, and I think that it cited more, view of the Heartland district, but it had nothing to do with us. We don't even know who she is. Like, why are we, you know what I mean? We can't, put out every flyer if we don't know what we're talking about, right? So I would like more information before we choose something like this.
Might I make just a recommendation for the future? It may be beneficial to have a closed session with our council in relation to the broader topic that day.
And then satisfy my request, yes.
What I find really interesting is that I am on the DEI committee. It's been 6 months. I haven't been to a meeting. I have no idea when the next meeting is. We're going through all of this. And yet, why do we have a committee? I don't get that. And if they're in no hurry, if the DOJ is in no hurry to tell us what they want or want to see, I am in no hurry to hire somebody at a principal salary level to make sure we're being less racist.
Exactly. What's wrong with being less racist?
Oh, describe it for me. What is less racist?
We're gonna have to, but we have to do a vote. We have to vote on this.
I guess just one last thing again, I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to this community to spend our money wisely and to just arbitrarily create a position for which we don't know what it's supposed to achieve does not feel like we're doing that justice to the community.
I think Mr. You spoke to what it was supposed to achieve. It was supposed to achieve the fact that.
Well, if you want to see something in writing, which is the DOJ that says do this, then you will have that. That's just we're playing whack-a-mole.
Well, I don't
solve the problem.
I think he brought together a very descriptive job that would cover what is lacking and what the Department of Justice wants to see from us. And I think it would be a mistake not to do it. Again, this is my opinion, but
But once again, do we have it in writing? Sorry to interrupt. Once again, do we have it in writing? I heard no. Come back with, we get it in writing, then maybe it's a different decision.
Can I answer that question? Would you like me to answer that question? So we had it in writing at the last year at this time, going into the school year. If you handle these 6 things, it would satisfy the DOJ. They came and talked with us. Ms. Bowman, you were there. They said, yeah, you handled those things. You handled them from a perspective of all students in a safe environment, and that's great. But you didn't concentrate on the race issue. And here's the deal. You demonstrate indifference by doing the same thing next year that you did this year. That's not going to change our stance on where you stand as a school district. For instance, when we hear that a teacher is reading a book about Martin Luther King and a young person says, why do we have to care about those people, using descriptors? They say, here's the deal. What we found in our investigations is you have students of color that specifically are targeted at an early age. They get tired of being targeted and no longer bring it up at a later time because they're tired of dealing with it. And that makes me feel bad. I don't like that. That made me feel terrible. And I said that to the DOJ. And I said, we worked so hard to move this forward. And they said, yeah, but if you've always done what you've always done, you always get what you always got. I think that's a Walmart guy saying. And your deliberate indifference is by not trying something new. Putting a resource or somebody that's going to guide you forward to specifically take care of these things. So we've shared this with our attorney. We've shared the plan that this could be a component of it. The attorney's response is, this looks really good. You're definitely down the path that the DOJ is asking you to go down. I'm saying to you is, I feel like I haven't had the time this year to address this as much as I needed to. I don't believe that Mr. Van Epps in the personnel department has had the time and energy to be able to do the best job possible. Because we're pulled in lots of different directions, lots of different issues in the world that we live today. lots of FOIAs, lots of this, lots of that. I share a lot of that with you. It just keeps coming. And we don't have time to do the nitty gritty work that needs to be done. I believe we need somebody to guide us through this. And I believe it needs to be somebody that's freed up and get this work done. I believe that. And this is why this position exists. If you don't want to vote on it, don't vote on it. But I think it's the right move for us in moving forward. And like I said, if you have questions, instead of waiting for tonight, like it seems happens, come in and sit down and let's talk about it. So we can make sure we get the information you're looking for. So,
Yeah, but there's a whole crowd here that should hear this too, and that's why sometimes we wait until the meetings, because not everyone hears what they need to hear. And on the old racist meter, how racist is Heartland Schools? Where are we at on the DOJ's racist meter? What kind of marks have they given us? What's our score?
Well, Glenn, in regards to the asking Mr. Hughes in advance, like I said, when all the new board members came on, I encouraged you to do that. I encouraged you to call him. You could call him on the weekends. The man's gonna pick up his phone. He's a workaholic, and that's a problem. It doesn't mean you can't ask the exact same question here, so the constituents that voted for you can hear it. It's called courtesy, that you ask Mr. Hughes in advance, hey, I want answers. I want to know, why are we hiring this person? Why are we creating this job? He talks to you one-on-one, and then you say to him, Mr. Hughes, I'm gonna ask you those same questions, because I feel that our community should hear the answers you just told me. And I'd be darned if Mr. Hughes would say, you bet. But that's not what's happening. And I think
Mr. Hughes is always more than accommodating to talk to us. The problem is that sometimes there is no answers or determination made when we do talk. And this is a big subject. This is something that everyone should have input on. Again, it's transparency. If we don't talk about it here.
I don't think, I'm not saying don't talk about it here. What I'm saying is, do your due diligence, reach out to Mr. Hughes and say, oh, tell me what's happening with this position. Let me know.
Please,
They're not
talk to us about due diligence. Please.
This has nothing to do about transparency. This is about how it has to do about, as a board member, we're expected to come here, educated on these issues and vote on them.
Yeah, well, I'm educated.
So, Mr. Melindy, looks like you're.
Yeah, I have a question. So again, I want more information to understand what we're looking at as a district that our kids are doing that are prompting the this type of coordination over the student body. Because I'm not aware. I'm aware of 2 incidents that hit the newspaper. Both of them are questionable. But what I want to know is I want some more information on this. And then I also want to know, when we give this book with our kid's name, there's the child's name in there, whatever they say or do, the incident, we give it to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is obviously putting it in some kind of like a record retention database. And are we protecting our children? Because kids, I keep saying this, and I don't know anybody that would argue that kids do dumb stuff and they say dumb stuff. Somebody does something, something happens, some kid eats more candy than he should, and he's off the rocker, and he says something, and then he gets put in the book, Department of Justice, puts it in their database, and that follows him or her, doesn't it?
Yes.
Are we protecting our students from that level? Because the expectation that adults are putting on these children, I just feel like all of this stuff, the expectations of these children being perfect and doing all this stuff, that when adults can't even manage themselves as well as we're expecting our kids to manage themselves, can we take that off of here, right? Like, does it have to go that far, is what I'm asking. So I think what Megan suggests is we meet closed session with the lawyer, ask all of our questions, understand what the expectations are, what the outcome needs to be. Is it a year-long stint, or is this going to be something that, we adapt forever? And what level of racism are we seen as? I would really like to know, because I'm not familiar with anybody in Heartland, and I know a lot of people in Heartland. I've not seen one racist issue and the adult or the family.
To clarify, Mr. Hughes, can you just confirm that? Are
You
your?
want to share
Has-
it? I can walk you
This is Glendale, this is Glendale, this is Glendale, this is Glendale. This is Glendale, please don't ever do that.
Okay, I want to.
Okay. I just want to confirm with Mr. Hughes, this job description and this job that is before us today. You have discussed this and our lawyers recommend that this does look like it's something that could work. for the
Our
department.
attorney's response to our end of the year report was this included because we had to have a plan. The other thing is that you couldn't submit the report without a plan moving forward. This is part of our plan. So very encouraged that it's a good plan, it's a good report, hoping to get it back soon. And we go from there. And in the meantime, we've got to start preparing. We've got to start preparing for the school year. As you know, this is the time of year that we've got to get things done. And this is what I wanted to do. It also means that this person also has to take on, because if you look at the job description, there's a lot of things in there that also is security related. Without Capra, without that concept, especially now that Capra has resigned, I need somebody to take this over and start moving us, forward with all the safety and security, because as I told you, we're pulled in many different directions. And if you look at Bulletin 1014, like I've told you before, and you look at where we're ranked as far as administrative costs, it's like 750 out of 826, and it's been that way for years. We're not heavy administratively. So that's the other fact. We need some help. This is what's going to help us move that.
I recommend we vote.
I also just wanna, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw, go ahead. Mrs. Cole, Mrs. Claybach, you're Mrs. Claybach.
I think we also have to recognize, and I didn't fully understand this or appreciate this, is that the DOJ doesn't, I don't know that they come to the table with saying that this is gonna solve X, Y, or Z. You have to show the impact, and then you have these other quarterly, I think, reports, you have quarterly report, then you have an end of the year, and that's actually when they determine. So for instance, the things we've done this year, they didn't review that at the end of the year, to then say you're not compliant, we're not closing this report. So I think we also have to consider that we wouldn't know. I don't necessarily think they're gonna tell us X, Y, and Z is gonna solve this. They wait for the impact to determine if X, Y, and Z solves this. Just a point of clarification.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion. Mr. Gobleski,
No.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mrs. Claybach,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
No.
Mrs. Blondie.
I'm a no, I want more clarity. Even if we do vote this into policy, I do want more clarity. I think it's necessary to protect our kids.
Thank you, Mrs. Blondie. My vote is a yes, that motion carries. Item 2A, FOIA Appeal 511.
I motion that the Board of Education denies FOIA Appeal 511/2023 and affirms the FOIA coordinator's determination of denying the initial FOIA request submitted on 5/8/2023.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. Discussion.
This is the video.
This is
just for confirmation.
This is on group video privacy.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a comment to the rest of the board and the audience. I, along with Mr. Hughes and Mr. Costa, had a conversation with the legal team, and they did provide all of us to read, which was a 2-page document summarizing their perspective on how we should vote tonight. One of the comments was that Drew mentioned that it's not required that we provide this information, but I also asked them if there's anything that prevents us from doing it. And I guess just as a general philosophy for me, I guess I can't support intentionally withholding information from someone in our community. I think this particular video would be part of that child's record, and therefore they should be entitled to have access on it, and I don't want the district to put unnecessary burdens to members of the community to try to get information. And so I hope that, you know, my fellow board members can appreciate that, again, even though we're not required to provide it, there's nothing that says we cannot. And rather than make a parent go the subpoena route, I think it's not the message we want to tell members of the community.
I guess I can speak on behalf of someone else wants to talk as well. I gotta, Mr. Keller, I appreciate your point of view, but I know, because I was in the phone call with our attorney as well. He did mention though, I mean, in the case in point, that the parent did take it to see the video. Is this correct, Mr. Hughes? Can you answer that? Yes, he did. Okay, so it's not a matter of the parent not to be able to see it. I think it's a matter of the video itself just being out in the public. And I think our attorney alluded to the fact that simply don't want to do that to any of those kids involved. So it's not a matter of the parent not being able to see this video because he did. So I think that's where I struggle with. Why would we do this? If the parent has seen it, any board member who's wanted to see it could see it. I would struggle with going to release this based on the fact that our attorney recommends you don't.
I guess with all due respect, Mr. Costa, were you able to identify any student in that video based on the footage you saw?
I don't personally know any of the students, so I would say no, I couldn't identify them.
But could you even tell what color hair they had?
They were far off in the distance, Mr. Keller. Could you identify them?
No, and that's.
I mean, I would-
How does that kind of be
I guess
a concern for someone that can't?
Provided me with a list of a roster of students, I were to analyze their hairstyles, I guess, but I don't think that's the point. The point our attorney is saying, again, I'm not an attorney and we sat in that conversation. He recommended we don't. So, I mean, unless you're an attorney and you have a better insight into the law, I'm more than open to listen.
No, not claiming to be an attorney, but again, he did specify that there's nothing that says we cannot provide it. So I'm erring on the side of transparency, and so for that reason, I will vote in favor of allowing the individual to have the access to their footage.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
I can appreciate transparency, but I think this is a very, very slippery slope. I think we need to be cognizant of. So now every parent that's going to request video footage, as a parent of two students in the district, I don't need, videos of X, Y, and Z and parents, I think if this is going down the road or if something happens from a criminal standpoint, then you turn the video over to the county prosecutor or to the sheriff's office. But I have a problem with I have a safety issue with that, and the precedence that it sets throughout the entire district.
Mr. Costa, you said something and I would like you to repeat it or just clarify for me. You said members of the board have the ability and the right to see the videos. Is that correct?
As I was meeting with Mr. Keller and Mr. Hughes and the attorney, the fact of the matter is that we now have to be here tonight to vote on this. Allowed us then the right to see this, because if we have to make a determination on whether or not I've got to deny this FOIA, then it becomes a board member's role. Up until then, in my opinion, just one person up here, we don't deal with day-to-day discipline. I'm not the one that's going to determine whether someone was climbing up or down the big slide or whatever occurred. That was not my role. It became our role when this FOIA denial came before us and we had to make a decision. So that's when Mr. Hughes and myself and Mr. Keller and the attorney agreed. Since they have to make a decision, board members, if they want to, can take a look at this video. But up until then, no.
Okay, that doesn't really answer my question. Do we have the right as a board member to review videos? Yes or no?
Well, I'd like to give you a yes or no, but I can't because of based on the fact that if it sits before us with a denial, like where we're denying a FOIA appeal, and it happens to be a video, my understanding, the interpretation from our attorney is we have the right to look at that video to make a decision, whether or not we want to release the video, like Mr. Gonzalez said. On a day-to-day basis, should we be looking at videos from our schools? Absolutely not.
No, and I'm not saying that. what I'm asking is, do we have the right as board members, to view videos when we ask to see them?
Mr. Gogolewski, I can give you my perspective from that meeting since I was there. My perspective from what the attorney said is we have the right to see it as a board member. However, he also had some comments about whether or not it was protocol for us to see it. So I think the distinction is we have an obligation now to weigh in on it, but before we still had a right to view it if asked. And Mr. Hughes, did you take away a different understanding from that question that I specifically asked to the attorney?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Basically, the attorney said there are protocols that the district operates under. And many of those protocols ought to be followed because they've always been followed. And I think that's where we got into the issue of the protocol is that your job as board members are not to do the day-to-day management of the school district, but to allow our principals to deal with things. When it comes to you as a board member from a parent saying, hey, I got X, Y, and Z concern, the best thing to do is to say, hey, Mr. Hughes, I got the X, Y, and Z concern because principal A, I didn't get where I needed to be, or the parent is saying they didn't get what they needed. I'll check it, I'll look at it, I'll get back with you. If I need to see the video, I'll look at the video, I'll give you my 2 cents on the video. But really on the day-to-day operations and protocols is you as a board shouldn't be micromanaging that piece of the business. You all operate from this level, we operate from this level, and the principals operate from the ground level. And so in this case, the attorney said, because like Chris and Greg alluded to, because the appeal now is sitting here, you certainly had the right to come in and take a look at the video because now you're making a decision at the board table based on the appeal. And so that opened the door for protocol for you to come in and see the video, which was open to you. So
I'm asking this as a general question because of the denial that many of us have had to see basic things, basic rights, whether it's using a projector, whether it's seeing a video or whatever. And I'm just a little confused as to what we're able to do as board members. I'm just a little fuzzy on that. So we're not allowed to go into schools at any time. We're not allowed to use certain equipment. We're not allowed to view a video. I'm curious.
Any other discussion on the action item with Appeal 501? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glaybach? Mr. Keller?
No.
Mrs. Blondell?
I'm gonna say, I'm for transparency and say no.
I myself am a yes. That is denied. Item 2J, FOIA fee appeal 6223.
I move that the Board of Education denies FOIA fee appeal 62/2023 and affirms the FOIA coordinator's determination of the initial estimated fee itemization submitted on 6/2/2023.
I have some discussion. So,
Motion.
I'm sorry.
Motion by Mrs.
Support,
Gold,
sure.
support by Mrs.
Discussion. Sorry.
Mrs. Blondell. Mrs. Blondell.
So, Mr. Usher's paid already, so any kind of like fees, for FOIA is in addition to that. I'm not clear what the time would be to look for one email. I talked to my IT director and he didn't seem, unless there's some different computer system that you could have, it didn't seem that it should take that long. You know, he couldn't fully understand it, what I was saying, because I don't know what system we're in that we're looking at. If it's just, Gmail or whatever, it shouldn't be that difficult to be able to search for just one email address. And, you know, I FOIA'd, before I got on the school board, I FOIA'd a lot, there was a lot of big bills I got. Some I paid, some I didn't. Sometimes I did feel like they were to dissuade me from getting the information, so I understand how Mr. Scott feels, so. You know, I just wanted to put that out there. I wanted us to be transparent. And I don't believe that it should cost that much.
Can I,
Thank you, Mrs. Fondio.
can I jump in?
Yeah, are you be jumping in on the cost of it? How you
Yeah.
provided this?
Yeah, so obviously, you know, I was asked for a breakdown of this. I've shared with, through Renee, the FOIA coordinator, has shared with, Mr. Scott, what the costs are. Keep in mind that FOIA's cost us because it's taking our employees away from their job. So while yes, I'm currently on the clock, the fact is I'm not on the clock when I'm trying to take and gather all this information for these FOIA requests. So I did talk with Mr. Usher. I shared this with you. The argument is that a lesser person could do it. The fact is, because of, we've made a conscious decision in our district because of the people that have gotten up to the podium the last few years about safety of information on the net, safety of our computers and who has what, that Mr. Usher is the only one in our district that has the ability to pull this information. We've purposely not trained others because we didn't want them to have access to this sensitivity. So he is the one. Our backup is at LESA, and that's at a higher rate, and I think I shared that with you as well. Mr. Usher has said that in his estimate, because he's not had to do a complete search of all 600 employees in regards to this particular email address, here's what we do know. There's one employee in the school district that would have access to this system and this email return. That one employee only takes a half an hour to search that one employee's email bank. We've offered that to Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott hasn't got back to us to say, okay, yeah, I'll take that. That's one employee. We would have a very high confidence that that's the only employee that would return emails back from this particular email setting. But that wasn't good enough. So in order to go and check every employee, our best faith estimate is what we've given. And if that is not good enough, I'm sorry, but if we don't spend it all, then the person gets that remainder back if we go through and check these emails. So based on the law and our best faith estimate and who can do the work, it stands as is. If this in particular person wants to say, hey, okay, yeah, you're right. If it's only one person that would get these emails back, then I'd be happy to get them from that person, then that's a different story. But right now, and I think I gave you an email with him copied on it that clearly says he agrees with this, and this is his affidavit and my affidavit, that this is our best faith estimate. That's what it has to be, a best faith estimate.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The time frame in which the emails is allotted or requested, I did not memorize it. Have we had any change in personnel that would perform that work?
Do we have another person that could do this work?
No. So if we're saying this one employee does this.
Yes.
This work, have we, during the time frame of the documents requested?
No.
Have we had a change in who does that work?
Nope, only one person.
So why do we have to search all the records? I guess I'm not sure.
Because the FOIA was written to FOIA to address, to look at all emails in the school district. To look at all emails in the school district, if you read their FOIA request that you had been given. And we said, okay, if we look at all school district employee addresses that might get this return email back, this is what it's gonna cost.
But isn't there one person that files these emails? So why do we need the entire district?
Because this individual asked us to check every single district employee's email in case they got one of these.
Can we call the gentleman in question to the podium? Is that allowed so we can clarify some items to make an informed decision?
Yeah, I think that's gonna open up the mic, and I would respectfully think that would be not appropriate. I do, but I mean, we're gonna make a decision. Correct, but I would mind the fact that the problem is with then opening it up. To say if we wanted to have a conversation, invite people up about any other item. No offense to Mr. Scott, because I honestly think he's probably just trying to get an answer. And like, I know it sounds like the chief offered up something. Yes, Mrs. Clayback. Sure.
The one employee who does the work. To satisfy the FOIA.
Yes, that was not offered until after my appeal, but that.
We agreed to thumbs down. Thank you.
Wonderful, now we don't have open mic night, because again, I think Mr. Scott's attempt to find information, I think perhaps the initial FOIA wasn't, so. It sounds like Mrs. Clayback has done her research and indicated that Mr. Scott perhaps would be comfortable with one individual. Thank you, Mrs. Clayback, for doing that research. So as the motion stands, we are denying the FOIA appeal. Based on initial estimates. So the fact that the FOIA is for.
I guess we still vote on this, but I'm going to also make a recommendation to somebody in our audience that they perhaps. That we get confirmation via email of the switch to the FOIA, just so we have that on record, please.
I think that's a great opportunity for someone to do that. It's a wonderful idea. Right. No other discussion. Vote to deny the FOIA appeal 6/2/23. Mr. Gillespie.
No.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Clayback.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
No.
Mrs. Blondeel.
No. If he's changing it, if he's changing the FOIA.
I'm
yeah,
gonna
it's
say yes,
just-
I'm just voting yes. It's about and hoping that our community member reaches out. Item 2A, future meetings, 6/2/2023, right here in the board. Item 3B, I do have an informational item. Mr. Hughes' superintendent evaluation has been complete. I have done all the calculations based on the reports I received, and he has been deemed highly effective. Item 4. Unless they have any mentions, very good.